And we are live by the grace of God on a Sunday
Mhm.
afternoon, evening, morning. I don't know, depending on where everybody's tuning in. We're going to have a fun debate tonight, a fun dialogue back and forth. This is my first time ever speaking with Nadir Ahmed. But hey, we're going to have a blast, audience. We hope you all are excited for a robust dialogue. I'm going to be taking the position that, of course, I believe the Mary in Catholicism is the correct historical Mary. And Nadir is going to obviously argue that the Mary of Islam is the correct one. But before we even dive in, Nadir, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what do you do and where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm, Muslim apologist, and we have a friend in common, Sam Shimon, and we
Sure.
were just talking about him, and so
Yeah.
basically, you know,
All
uh,
good stuff.
yeah, I basically do this that when the challenge comes in, whatever it may be, that hey, look, you got a contradiction about Mary or science or whatever the topic may be. Maybe this was the result of demonic possession. I'm there. I don't even hesitate. I don't even think about it. I'm like, sure, because if Islam is a true religion, it should have no contradiction. So even this whole thing about Mary, when you approached me with it, I was like, I don't know anything about this topic. But
Sure.
you know what? Islam is if Islam is a true religion, then it cannot have these type of contradictions errors. And that's what I do. I am to be very honest with you, I am the only genuine apologist. There are
Mm.
none other because Christians
Okay.
don't do that. Okay, if I were to
Okay.
go to your Christian apologist and say, look, your Bible has a scientific error in it, or there's a problem with slave beating, or there's a false prophecy, they will not appear on his live stream to
Mm.
discuss and debate these things. That just has never happened for 30 years.
Well, when
Only
I
the
get
religion
challenged,
of
I
Islam
debate.
has a true apologist. Now
Yeah,
you can
when
show it to me
well,
if
when I
I'm
get challenged,
yeah.
I debate. So it's not
But
entirely true.
so what are
If I
you?
get
So
challenged, I
that's
debate.
that's very interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that because people like you are a rarity. You are like a 1 in 30 years kind of guy who appears because, like, if I were to go to David Wood, Sam Shimon, what Atkins, and all your Christian apologists, you could go on YouTube and search any video where they have ever. Like, let's just take scientific errors where they have ever answered a scientific error challenge. It has never happened. The last time that happened was like 1996.
Well, it sounds to
And
me like
after
you're very interested in scientific errors and
or
stuff and
whatever
what
it is,
have
I
you.
don't care. It could
But
be science,
but
it could be
let's get
logical,
into
it
the
could be
topic
anything.
though. Let's stick
Yeah.
with the topic there. We'll stick with that topic. Maybe one
Mhm.
day we'll
Yeah.
do scientific errors or miracles or what have
Whatever
you.
it
I
is, I'm here.
definitely be open to any of those. But do want to let the audience know.
Yeah.
Uh, Send your questions in. We'll take them at the end. We have a rather short debate slash dialogue. We'll have two 7-minute opening presentations or openings, if you will. I don't have any presentation. And Nadir, if he has one, there's no problem. I can share. I don't have any slides or anything.
I'm sorry, what was the format again? I wasn't
Two
listening.
7-minute openings
Oh,
and then two 15-minute open dialogue cross examination with the one cross examining leading the dialogue, and then two final 7-minute closings. And then, as long as Nadir is available, and long as
sure.
he has the time, we'll take questions that you, the audience, have. But remember, audience, you can send them in now. I will save them. We'll get to them at the end of the debate. Make sure you put at. Who do you direct it to? Because if you're directing it to me, then I'll answer it. If you're directing it to Nadir, he'll answer it. But you got to let us know. And I'll allow this so that it can be respectful. If you direct it to Nadir, he will get the first response. I'll get the last response. If it's directed to me, I'll get the first response. Nadir will get the last response. Does that work for you, Nadir?
Yeah, sure.
And the last response won't be very long, a minute tops, so that we don't there won't be a lot of pontificating or what have you. But if you're ready, you can go ahead and begin, and I'll put the timer on. And as soon as your time is up, right at the 7-minute mark, if you don't have the timer, I will let you know when your time is up. I
Okay.
may remove myself from the screen. I may, or I may turn my camera off, but I'm here. I'm here listening.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Let me just get my clock here. I'm sorry.
No, no worries. I have got the timer here as well.
Okay, where's my hold on 1 second. Where are you, buddy? Okay, here's my clock. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Okay, so why is it that we believe that we have the real Mary as well as Jesus, and really the whole thing there? Well, there's a couple of like I said, the number one reason is because Islam is not some kind of religion which just says, okay, well, here's, you got to believe this, you just have to accept it. There's real scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence which demonstrates that the Quran is the word of God. And debates are very important, as I was mentioning, just alluding to you earlier. To be very honest with you, my just appearing here in this discussion to answer whatever objections it is, whether about Mary or whatever, that's kind of enough evidence, in my opinion. I'll tell you why, because I've been doing these debates and discussions for about 30 years. Only one religion, and that is a religion of Islam, which answers all the objections. Doesn't matter what topic it is, and just appear on these live streams. And you can verify that by go ahead and just Google on YouTube, or show me any video or any YouTube video of your favorite apologist debating scientific errors in the Bible or whatever. No, there is none. Only the religion of Islam does. So what makes Islam true but is the scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence which demonstrate it to be the word of God. There are things in the Quran, written in the book, which a man 1400 years ago just could not have known. But that's another debate. The evidence for Islam is a total different discussion. We will shelf that for right now. But I'm telling you, that discussion and debate is out there. I'm always ready to entertain that. And there's been a lot of progress on that. Now, today, by the grace of God, the atheist and agnostic community have given a partial acknowledgement to the scientific miracles of the Quran. And if you want, I can show you that video. It's on my YouTube page. But like I said, let's shelf the evidences, because that's really the main focus. You guys can make your guys' claim about what we believe about Mary, and we can make ours. But I think the second reason is because the Mary of Christianity, it's a pagan Mary. God giving, the mother giving birth to God. Where did that come from? Well, that actually arises out of idolatry, out of the pagan religions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick over here, just so we can take a look at that. And so you guys got a pagan Mary. And like, I'll just give you an example. This is an example of one of the gods, goddesses. This is Leto, if I'm pronouncing that name right, the bride of Zeus and the mother of the twin gods Apollo and Artemis. Hey, does that sound familiar? That's what the Christians believe. They believe Mary was a mother of God giving birth to God. So here we see these pagan ideas being kind of recycled in the religion of Christianity. Let's take a look at another one. Newt. The myth also states that the sun deity Ra traveled through her. She swallowed him at night and then gave birth to him every morning. This is from EgyptianMuseum.org website. So what Christianity apparently, it looks like, what's going on here is that there's some religious borrowing going on. And of course, son of Mary, the son of God idea, that also is coming out of idolatry as well. This is from the website New World Encyclopedia. Many figures in the ancient world used to phrase son of God to justify their political authority. Rulers and heroes are often treated as supernatural sons of a particular god among the polytheistic pantheon. So, all these ideas, God coming down in the flesh of a man, son of God, mother of God, giving birth to gods and goddesses, or this is all coming out of idolatry. And so that's the problem here. What I'm going to press William here tonight, you got to give us some good reason why we should just not assume the obvious here, that this is just, idolatry and pagan beliefs just being regurgitated into the New Testament. And that's very common for religions to borrow from one another. Now, of course, your son of God, mother of God, giving birth to gods and goddesses, that's of course is different from every different pagan religions. You say, oh, well, there's some differences between our mother of God and those pagan mother of God. That doesn't really prove anything. All of them are borrowing from one another and they tweak their concept to make it fit what they want. So, what's great about Islam, Islam comes 600 years later and it strips all these pagan attributes away from Mary, Jesus. No, there's no mother of God. There is no, son of God. There is no God coming in the form of a man. So that's really good. Islam really addressed these pagan influences and strip them away. Secondly, and the third reason is this is clearly not what the Jewish Old Testament taught, that God is coming down in the form of a man. And no. Now, what Christians do, okay, they reinterpret the Old Testament to make it mean what they want to mean. And they read the Son of God into that book, meaning he's a divine Son of God. But that's just all an interpretation job, and anybody can do that. The monkey god, Hanuman. I could take the Old Testament and I could read the Hindu monkey god in there. And I've actually asked ChatGPT to do it. Did a great job. Here's my point. To a Christian, that just sounds blasphemous. You're saying the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament is Hanuman, the monkey god. Well, you know what? From a Jewish perspective, no. It's Jesus being the Son of God in the Old Testament is just as absurd as Hanuman, the monkey god of the Old Testament. Both of these are justified by just reinterpreting the book.
All right, time.
Yeah.
All right, let me go ahead and I will begin. Oh, let me get my timer. Okay. Let's begin right now. The Mary of Catholicism is apostolic, historical, and theological. And Mary within Catholicism, we can find, is rooted not only in the Old Testament text, which prophesy of Mary, but the New Testament identifies Mary as the mother of Jesus, Son of God, indeed as our Theotokos, as the God-bearer, mother of God. She is full of grace, blessed above or among women, it's a superlative, and she's a virgin conceiving by the Holy Spirit. The accounts that we have of Mary within Catholicism come from first century eyewitness accounts. The Mary within Islam is a counterfeit Mary, comes several centuries later from a figure of Muhammad who was very confused as to what the Bible even taught, did not present to you a historical figure at all. Within the Bible and the writers in the post-biblical era, they were writing within the living memory of events. They preserved the authentic character, role, and the honor given to Mary. Now, one of the common arguments that you're going to find in the Quran is that Mary is worshipped, and we find that very often. There are many verses that you can find within the Quran. Indeed, one of them is, did you say to worship you and your mother as gods? In the Quran, 5:116. Now, there are many others, but I have limited time. But that is just one very clear example of the egregious errors in the Quran that can be found, because indeed no Christians worship Mary. And indeed that shows yet again the inability of Muhammad to understand biblical distinctions of veneration contra worship. Now, within the Bible, there is what is known as a continuity of tradition out of the Bible as well. From the earliest of times, the early fathers, to the great Marian homilists, such as St. Cyril of Jerusalem, St. Ephraim, Ambrose, the great Augustine, Holy Mary is proclaimed as Virgin Mother of God, the new Eve, and Queen. The devotion found within the Catholic Church of Mary is grounded in sacred scripture, attested by the earliest witnesses, and developed organically throughout the centuries. The Quranic Mary is a late and a very inaccurate construction. The Quranic text emerges far, far after the biblical authors have died, far removed geographically from the apostolic world, centuries after the events, without access to the living Christian tradition, as is very clearly evident to the egregious errors made within the Quran by Muhammad. Muhammad's knowledge of Christian belief depended largely on oral anecdotes, non-canonical sources, and sectarian heresies likely circulating there in Arabia, not in sacred scripture or apostolic teaching. It becomes very obvious with the amount of errors that are made there. One particular egregious error is that Mary's father is Imran. But this is almost becomes laughable with all due respect, because there is no one in early history, nor not in the Bible, nor in early history, that identifies the father of Mary as this particular figure. And within the scriptures, Christology determines Mariology. Islam denies the incarnation, the divine sonship of Christ, the salvific death, and the bodily resurrection. And by denying Christ's true identity, Islam necessarily, of course, it's needed, redefines Mary, reducing her role to that of a figure that is almost non-recognizable. The Quranic Mary is not rejected. We're not rejecting it because we say that they don't care about Mary. No, I agree. I believe Nadir probably has great respect for Mary, and I know a lot of Muslims do. That is not what we're saying here, but rather the Quranic Mary must be rejected because she is theologically severed from her son's true identity. And no belief about Mary is valid unless it is grounded in the truth about Christ. Since the Quran presents a non-divine Christ, its Mary cannot be the true historical and theological Mary. That's a debate for another day, and we, by the grace of God, will plan to debate the deity of Christ another day. But today is whether or not the Bible presents Mary as Mother of God. Indeed, it flat out calls her that. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 1, verse 23, she is the virgin, the Parthenos, that will give birth, Tikto, to Emmanuel, which means God with us. She is a God-bearer. The historical Mary exists in the Catholic Church, and it is only the Catholic Church that preserves the historical memory of Mary, the apostolic witness about Mary, and the theological meaning of Mary. Within Islam, it is, I'm sorry, but the Mary of Islam is doctrinally incompatible with the real Mary by rejecting the Son, rejecting the cross, rejecting the resurrection, rejecting the incarnation. Islam necessarily rejects Holy Mary's true vocation. Thus, the Quranic Mary is a different figure, historically, theologically, and spiritually, from the true Mother of God. Now, today's debate is not simply about whether or not who honors Mary or what have you. It is about recognizing who Jesus is. And Mary is presented as the one that gave Christ his human nature. She is presented as the Mother of God, as St. Elizabeth, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, uttered, the Mother of my Lord. Now, Islam's rejection of this is quite problematic, and there are a number of areas where we're going to go today where there simply is there's no solution for Islam on this. Number one, we can prove that the earliest followers of the Christ, they held to these particular beliefs. But perhaps more devastating to my opponent today, Nadir, are the early enemies that are of antiquity, and the early enemies that attest to the fact that the followers of the Christ believed certain things about Mary that don't line up with what Muslims believe about her today. The other issue is the very deficient view of worship. Within the Quran, Muhammad had a very deficient view of what worship really was very confused as to what worship was. Thus, he blurred a very massive line between veneration and actual worship, not understanding the distinctions. Thus, he created these texts, which definitely are not inspired, and the texts are kind of like a rebuke towards Christians, accusing them of worshiping Mary. Now, I don't know how Nadir is going to get beyond that. But the Old Testament, the Torah, and the New Testament clearly define what worship is. Muhammad gets it wrong. The clear errors as to the father of Mary are ludicrous. These are errors that are very clearly outrageous and outlandish. There's nobody in early church history that you're going to find that attests to that name for the father of Mary. Yet the father of Mary is attested to his name from the earliest of centuries, and I mean in the very early apostolic era. So there are many enemies. Many enemies. There are many enemies that attest to the truth as well. But there are many pillars today that Nadir is simply not going to be able to deal with, that refute Islam and show that within Catholicism, and only in Catholicism, do we have the true historical Mary. My time's up, man.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Format again?
Your cross-examination now, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So you brought up a lot of point. And so I'm sorry, can you remind me again, how did the cross-examination goes?
Let me reset it again because I started. So
yeah.
You control it. You ask me the question. Obviously, I answer you. You allow me to answer you, and then you ask me as many questions as you want. If you don't feel I've answered it sufficiently, you can continue hammering home that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
do you want me to begin already?
Yeah, let's begin then.
Let's
okay, go. So you brought up many points here. I'm going to try my best to address all of them. First of all, you have stated that things about apostolic authority and first century eyewitness accounts and
Yep.
all of these things, but you showed zero evidence. These are just assertions.
Okay,
And
so I'm going to tell you. Remember, you can't make statements. You got to ask me a question.
okay,
So I'll take that as
why
a
did you
question.
not show any evidence for these assertions?
Okay, so the question of not showing evidence, clearly you didn't pay attention, because I actually cited the Gospel of St. Matthew. Matthew is an eyewitness. I cited Matthew chapter 1, verse
Do you
verse
have any
23.
evidence
And,
it's an
and, and, in,
eyewitness?
and in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23,
Okay.
and yes, I do,
Let me
Irenaeus,
I can
Irenaeus
control.
believes he was
Okay.
an eyewitness.
So
Hold on,
you're
I'm not
just
done answering, though. I'm not done answering it, dear. You're going to have to let me
yeah.
answer.
All right.
I did cite St. Matthew. And St. Matthew very clearly does give us a testimony that Mary is the mother of God. So that right there refutes Islam on one particular point there, the point that I made early on. Now, if you want me to show you evidence that he's an eyewitness, yes, we've got St. Irenaeus, who is an apostolic foundation and a pillar, who believed he was an eyewitness. And he quotes all of the Gospels as eyewitnesses. And he was taught and trained by Bishop Polycarp, who was taught and trained by the Apostle St. John. So yes, we do have early evidence that we can show.
So this apostolic mythology, which you are presenting to us, you just said that Matthew is an eyewitness. I mean, wouldn't you agree? You are just making assertion after assertion without not showing any evidence for this?
No, number one, it's not mythology, and I just
Okay.
gave you
It's all
multiple
mythology.
streams.
Yeah.
I just gave you multiple streams of evidence,
These
and
are
you
all-
continue to call it mythology. So what
It's
I've
all
got, Nadir, the difference
Where's
that
your
I've got,
evidence?
what I have, Nadir, is I have first century writings, and
Yeah,
outside of
okay.
first century writings, I've got first century testimony outside of the Bible. I've got second century testimony in the followers as well. So I've got a chain of transmission that you don't have, Nadir. Then unfortunately, you got to wait hundreds of years to hear the nonsense in the Quran. This is not mythology. I have an unbroken chain. I don't have to wait 600-700 years to hear the nonsense concocted by Muhammad.
Where is your evidence that Matthew really wrote Matthew? As you know, scholars say these are anonymous gospels. Let's just start there. Show me some evidence for this stuff.
So Papias believed Matthew wrote Matthew. In fact, he believes Matthew wrote an Aramaic version. He's a very early witness. My friend, I've got to finish my sentence. Not only him, we've also got Saint Irenaeus. But outside of them, this debate is clearly about the Mary of history. Even if Matthew didn't write Matthew and it was a scribe of his, which I believe it was Matthew, it doesn't change the fact that we have early testimony, first century testimony, and the followers of the Christ that all believe these things about Mary that are not believed within Islam. That's what you've got to contest with and deal with today, Nadir. You continue calling this mythology. I'm sorry, my friend.
Yeah, you're just making assertions after assertions. So
every time you make those statements, I'm going to answer them. I'm not making it. I am not making assertions. No, I am not. You're wrong, my friend. I am actually giving you rock solid evidence. I give you the Gospel of Matthew. I gave you the Gospel of Matthew. Well, I'd love for you to refute Matthew, Papias, Irenaeus, Ignatius, Polycarp. I'd love for you to refute them. Give it your best shot.
Here's my next question. Dr. Richard Carrier has already refuted all the stuff about Papias, kooks and quacks of the Roman Empire. That's what he called them.
So I will take that as a question. Once you're done, I'm going to answer
So my question to you is, have you had a chance to read through Dr. Richard Carrier's articles in which he refutes
There's a reason why Dr. Richard Carrier is not even taken seriously within atheistic circles. Dr. Richard Carrier is a fraud, and I've challenged him to debate, and we're working on getting a debate set up. He's not taken seriously. I would love for you to do it. He's not taken seriously, and neither is Dr. Price taken seriously. I don't care what Richard Carrier has to say, because he'd probably also criticize Islam. I don't care what liberals have to say. What I have actually, he's a horrible scholar. Here's what I have in here. You've got a liberal in 2025 that's not even respected among his own peers. And I've got the early church fathers from the first centuries. I have early witnesses that testify to my faith. And you got a guy that's a quack in 2025. Let's see who the audience thinks has better testimony.
So I think what needs to happen now, we are going to have a debate on church fathers, you and I, down the road.
And you'll lose that one too. You'll lose that one too. You'll lose Nadir. You'll lose all of them.
A lot of what you've mentioned is based on church fathers and this claims of first century.
Whatever you think it's based upon, I am taking your religion and spiritually refuting it and taking it out today. Do your best to refute it. I've given you St. Matthew. I've given you first century testimony. I've heard no refutation. I've heard no refutation.
I'm trying to stay on topic, but I mean, like I said, a lot of what you have
Early
said
history testifies to who Mary is.
okay. There's
Early
yeah, this is
eyewitnesses
all
testify.
mythology you're giving us. In
And
from
you
what I
need to
understand,
prove that it's
okay?
mythology. I'm going to
Okay.
refute that. You're not going to make those
We will
assertions,
debate. I
Nadir.
think that's going
Now,
to go into the
so
church father debate,
so
right?
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You got 9.5 minutes left.
Yeah.
You're not going to make statements like that's mythology
Yeah.
and then get away with it.
Well, you're
because
not going to make
you're not
statements
gonna,
that you
you're
got
not
this
going to
first century
pontificate.
eyewitness and get away with it.
Well, you're cross-examining me. I get to
these
make
are all
statements.
bogus
I get to
claims.
make statements. You're cross-examining me. So
All
no,
right.
it's not mythology.
Yeah, all
According
right.
to you, it is. But the
Yeah.
problem is this: I've got an unbroken chain of testimony, not only in the Bible, the early followers
There's
of
no
Christ,
chain.
and the early enemies, then refute them. Keep laughing as
There's no-
Nadir. I don't think laughter is going to save you
There
tonight.
is no
The laughter is
evidence
not
for
going to
the
save
things
you
you're
tonight, man.
talking about.
Let me tell you one thing, Nadir. I've
Yeah.
opened the butcher house.
Okay.
Laughter is not going to
Where-
save you tonight,
where
Nadir.
The
The
problem,
laughter won't save you
let-
tonight
let me-
because
hold
I'd
on.
love for you to refute St. Matthew,
Yeah, there
St.
is no
Luke,
evidence. There's nothing to
and
refute.
then
It's
the
all
early.
nonsense.
We sure do have the evidence. St.
Okay.
Ignatius of Antioch, St.
I have no
Polycarp,
problem. Okay,
St.
we can do that.
Irenaeus. You got a lot
We
of
can-
problems.
But the
You got a lot of
problem is the
problems.
reason why I'm not refuting Matthew and all
Because
the
you can't.
all
can't.
these church fathers is because I'm thinking to
can't.
myself, hold on, let me say something here. I'm thinking to myself, is that for the next debate or is that for this debate? I mean, I can
Well,
do it if you want
I
me
know
to.
it. I know you. There. You
So
think you're
I
going to
guess my
refute the
question,
church?
the problem is
You think you're
going
going to refute the church father? You think you're going to refute the church fathers versus
Yes,
me?
I'll destroy them. Yeah.
You think you're going to refute them? I'll eat a
Yeah.
sock if you refute the church fathers versus me. But
No,
let me tell you one other thing.
Okay.
No,
So
the church
I
fathers
have a
come into
question for you.
play.
Let me-
Hold
the
on,
question
Nadir.
is, do you want to do church fathers
Hold on.
right now?
The
or?
church father, Nadir, it's
Okay.
related to the topic because I'm talking about the
Okay.
apostolic era.
Let's do
Do
church
you understand
fathers.
what the
Okay.
apostolic era is, Nadir?
Okay, no
The
problem. We can do
apostolic
church-
era, you are
Okay.
asking me for a chain of transmission from the Bible
Yeah.
to the
This
apostolic
is
era.
all- okay, we
And
will
in the
debate that.
apostolic era, you
Yeah.
are refuted. They believe things about Mary
Yeah.
that Islam doesn't believe. Come on, Nadir. You
That's
know
correct. We
better,
don't-
Nadir.
So
you know
okay,
better.
so I guess what I'm going to do, let's just all this stuff about church fathers and
You can
you've
do
got
whatever
this
you want. It's your
unbroken chain.
cross-examination. You can do whatever you want.
We will save that for the debate, and then I think that way we don't like mush these two
You
debates
can do
together.
whatever you want, Nadir. It's your
Okay, so let's
cross-examination.
just focus on Mary here. Your I guess
Waiting,
your
I'm
belief in
waiting.
Mary is based on your church tradition, and you think your church tradition is authentic. Okay.
No, sir. It's based on the Bible, based on
Okay,
the Bible, sacred scripture, and sacred tradition both.
Yeah.
You cannot
okay.
deal with the Bible either. Ancient prophecies as well.
Well, I'm confused in terms of what
I know you're
subject we're
confused.
debate.
No, I
That's
know
what
you're
I'm
confused. I
about.
tell you that. I know you're confused. But
you-
do your
Hold on,
best.
William. The issue here is I'm not sure what topic to debate. I mean, I could talk about church.
I
fathers,
know
that's
you're
fine.
confused, but remember,
Okay.
let me remind you, church
Okay.
fathers that are in the apostolic era
Okay.
are tied in. They were taught by the apostles,
do-
Nadir. That's why I'm using them. Let's move away from them if you don't want to hear about them.
Okay.
I know you can't refute them. Let's move to something else.
Okay, do you
You
want
accused
me
us
to
of
refute
worshiping
them?
Mary.
Well,
you
now
can't.
you just threw
You
out a
accused
challenge
us.
to
You
me.
accused us of worshiping Mary. You want to deal with that? Good
Okay,
luck to
hold
that.
on a
You want to deal
second.
with that?
Okay, so I think, I mean, a lot of what you're saying is basically based upon all of these, as Dr. Richard Carrier pointed out, kooks and quacks of the Roman Empire.
So I'm going to respond to that
these
statement too.
frauds and deceivers, which you seem to be basing your belief on, and you think
So I'll
that you
respond to
can-
that since you're making assertions.
You think you can.
None of
prove
these early
guys-
fathers are quacks.
Okay, we can
None of
try
these
it.
early fathers are kooks. In fact, these early fathers, Muhammad relied upon one of them back there. The great
Even
one
if
there,
what you're
he
saying
ripped
is
off
true,
from
doesn't
St.
prove
Ephraim.
them to be true.
Muhammad had to rip off from these so-called quacks and kooks, as the greatest living Islamic scholar, Dr. Reynolds, recognizes. Your hero, Muhammad, ripped off from St. Ephraim. So much for them
What?
being
Where's
kooks
the
and
evidence
quacks.
for the things you're
He
talking about?
flat out ripped off from them. In his theology about Mary, he ripped off from St. Ephraim. That's who he ripped off from.
Okay, I've not seen any evidence.
I know
for
you haven't.
any
There's
of
a lot
these
you haven't
claims for
seen.
what you're talking about.
You need to clean
know.
the glasses.
Well,
You need to clean the
what's
glasses,
happening?
dear.
You're taking your beliefs and shoving it down everyone's throats here. All right.
So
Now, if
I'm
you
going to
could
answer that
prove
too.
these
I'm going to
things-
answer that too because
Hold on,
this
you
is
could, if you could
cross-examination.
prove these things, I'm ready to listen.
Let's
You
do it
just-
again. Let's rock and
Yeah.
roll. Let's rock and
Okay.
roll. St. Luke,
Okay.
and then St. Matthew, and then
Okay.
St. John. St. John taught the great Bishop Polycarp and St. Ignatius. We have the testimony in St. Ignatius who calls Mary Mother of God. And then afterwards, guess what? St. Polycarp, taught by
Mm-hmm.
St. John, also taught Saint Irenaeus, who taught Mary as Mother of God. We've got an unbroken lineage, and I can go on and on.
Okay.
You want to go to Victor? You want to go to Saint Hippolytus? I can go to every century to show an unbroken line.
I'm going
The
to
thing is this. The thing is this.
Let me
Nadir.
ask you a question. Can I ask you a question
know
about
church
fathers?
history and history
Yeah.
like the back
Okay.
of my hand, and I know the works off the top of my head. I can quote an unbroken line
Mhm.
from the Bible to early church history, Nadir. You're not going to
Okay.
do very well, Nadir.
Okay, look. Okay, you wanna discuss church fathers. I was trying to avoid the discussion, but I'm going to give you one question, which you should answer here. So
I'll
we
answer
now
whatever,
know
man.
from the writings of the church fathers, and also from that first century, that it was a common lie to claim that we got this message from the very disciples of Jesus. This was a common fraud, as Dr. Richard Carrier pointed out, as is in the history as well. In fact, Tertullian used to go around and ask people, "Show me the evidence that you really got this stuff from John." So I will apply the same standard to you.
Yes.
Where is the evidence that your church
Thank you.
father claims of having links to the disciples of Jesus?
Thank you.
Where is the evidence that they're
Beautiful.
not lying and they're telling the truth?
What a beautiful question, and I'm going to answer that, and it's
Yeah.
going to be so brutal for you, because Saint Irenaeus, when he went around accusing them of not having information from eyewitnesses, it was the Gnostics, the very people condemned in the Bible. It was the Gnostics that he wrote to. And I know exactly where those writings are. It's in Against Heresies and in his fragments. These don't work against me, Nadir. You're going to hit a wall with me against the
Show me
fathers.
the
Where does
evidence
the
that
Bible
he's
show
not
you?
lying.
Luke tells you, delivered to us in Luke 1:1-4, that the message is delivered to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses. Acts 1:22-22
Because they
says
claimed
to
it?
be a witness to
Wait a
Christ's
second.
resurrection.
No,
John
I asked you for
19:34.
evidence that these
He who
claims are
saw
true.
it has borne witness.
Okay.
His testimony is true. How do we know that it's true? Because after they write, their disciples also testify to the truth.
This is all
But it doesn't end
circular
there.
reasoning.
No, it doesn't end there, Nadir, because it would be
What?
circular if I only
Okay.
used positive testimony. Right after these eyewitnesses wrote, their followers wrote, and then even the
Okay.
enemies of the faith testified. Here's your problem, Nadir. If the early enemies of the faith, if they testify that what the followers of the crucified Christ believed in, and it lines up with what we believe in and not yours, you got a big problem, because that's not circular. Those are enemies of the faith.
Wait a
And
second.
Celsus refutes you.
Okay, wait a second. Hold on a second. We all know, like Against Celsus, you could just look at that book. It was people back then were fabricating gospels. They were lying about claiming to be disciples or getting messages from the disciples of Jesus. And your only evidence when I pressed you was because other people said he's true or something like that. I'm trying to get to what exactly is this evidence.
So
because
let's
I
continue
still
now.
don't
Let's
see it.
continue now. Let's continue, because I know
What?
it's
Okay,
difficult for you.
Polycarp. We'll take
By
the
the way, no, we're going to
Where
go
is
to
the evidence
Celsus.
Polycarp is
We're
right?
going to go to Celsus. You're right. So
Yeah.
in Celsus, you are right. What is being condemned there is Celsus knows that the early Christians believe Mary is Mother of God and believe Jesus is God. Celsus is attacking him because he's aware of one Christian group,
Okay.
of one group that followed the Christ.
Look,
He's aware of one. And that group had beliefs and teachings that line up with Catholicism. They don't look anything like that of Islam. If Islam was ancient, you would expect Celsus to be targeting beliefs that match yours. They don't. Islam is nowhere on the radar. What Muhammad believes is nowhere on the radar. Celsus is a hostile witness to what I believe today, not to what you believe.
still don't
You don't have
see any
anything on your side.
evidence.
I know you don't.
Okay,
I know
look,
you don't.
we'll take
The
one
Bible
example.
doesn't help. The Quran itself won't help.
Okay.
The Bible doesn't help. The Quran doesn't help. The enemies of the faith don't
Wait a
help.
second. I'm trying
Eyewitnesses.
to hold on a second.
I don't know
I'm
what
trying
you
to get
want.
the
You want a
evidence. What
Polaroid,
is this?
Nadir? You want a Polaroid?
These church fathers that you're following are claiming that they had writings or they got stuff straight from the disciples of Jesus, but I'm still not even sure. I mean, I don't know how to respond to you because I didn't even see any evidence that
Okay.
their claims are really true. Because now we do know
Okay.
that
I'll give you the
I mean, you
evidence.
acknowledge
Let me give you
these
the
were
evidence.
common lies people used
No,
to
sir.
say during the
you're
first
wrong.
century, right?
No, you're wrong. The lies with the
Yeah,
Gnosticism
Tertullian
were
said
very
that.
different. You're right. Tertullian was condemning the Gnostics who were antimatter.
No,
They
no,
didn't
no,
believe in
that's
the bodily
plain.
resurrection. No,
Tertullian-
Nadir, you don't know what you're
okay.
talking about. You don't
All
know
right.
church history, Nadir. You are in my butcher house right now. You don't know church history.
What?
Tertullian
Yeah.
was arguing against the Gnostics
No,
who
no,
were
no.
antimatter. They didn't believe the way the Christians believe. You're
Let
wrong.
me- Can
In
I
terms of
correct you on that?
eyewitness, no. I'm going to answer. You said give me evidence. I quoted Luke, and I gave you multiple eyewitness texts.
Okay,
We can go
wait a second.
further.
That's circular
How do we know
reasoning.
Polycarp knew John? Irenaeus tells us. And then after Irenaeus,
Okay,
we
just
know this
hold on. So you're going
unbroken
way
line.
too fast for me.
Go ahead.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so you're
I'll
saying
give you
that.
10. I'll give you one more question. Your time is up, but I'll allow you to ask one more question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so you're saying that first of all, let me correct you. Tertullian used to ask and challenge other people about the evidence that, okay, you really got stuff from the disciples. So I'm just applying the same standard. And you said that, okay, because we know that these church fathers aren't lying to us because the Bible kind of backs up what they're saying. Is that your argument? 'Cause
No,
that's
again, you
circular
don't
reasoning.
understand, and you're
Okay,
wrong on
I'm not
Tertullian.
understanding where you're
Tertullian,
going with this.
Tertullian was condemning those that were
No, no.
not part of the
These
apostolic
claims.
faith. Tertullian was
Okay.
condemning the Gnostics.
What the
They
heck?
did not. I know you don't understand this, Nadir. I know it's what the heck because you don't understand this.
No, you're
You're
not understanding
wrong.
what I'm saying. I
You're
want
wrong.
the claims that they really sat down with disciples and got their stuff from them. Where
let's-
is
let-
the
let- let me
evidence
give
for
you
this
again.
claim? That's
Let me
what
give
I'm
it to you
asking
again. Let me
Okay,
give it to you
just give me
again.
one so I can.
No, I need to tell you. Obviously,
Okay,
everything we
keep going.
read, we
All right.
read of,
Let me try to
and
understand
then
this.
I'm
Okay.
going to go to my cross examination because you've gone a minute
Okay.
over. In the Bible, we have clear testimony to eyewitnesses. Now, I'm not done, Nadir.
Circular
Outside,
reasoning. They
no,
gave us
Nadir,
these
I'm
books.
not done, Nadir. I
Oh my
barely
God.
began.
You
In
just
the
go-
Bible, we have testimony to eyewitness accounts.
There's no evidence to that.
Outside of the Bible, we have more testimony that all of those in the gospel era and in the New Testament era believed and followed the Christ and believed things we believe. We have witnesses outside of the biblical era. And then here is what ends your theology. The enemies of the faith, the enemies that are not Christian, Pliny the Younger, and many others that I can list, Celsus, they testify there is one group of Christians. And that one group believes certain things about Jesus and about the mother of Jesus that line up with what we believe, not with what Islam believes. That hostile witness annihilates your theology. Those hostile witnesses in the plural. It's my time for cross-examination now.
All right, go ahead. I didn't see any evidence, though.
I mean, I don't know what I can
It's
do
all
to you.
circular reasoning.
Unless I pull up a Polaroid,
It's like
you're not going
saying
to see
that
any
their
evidence.
buddies verified them.
Unless I
They're
pull up a
thing.
Polaroid, you're not going to believe it, right? Unless I pull up
You're
a
just
Polaroid.
saying it's all circular nonsense.
Guys, if any of you guys can get those super chats from earlier because they vanished on me because my thing crashed, if somebody could send them in WhatsApp so that I can read them later. Yeah, I know nothing is going to satisfy you outside of a Polaroid, but let's continue. Okay, so you accused. Oh, let me begin.
Let's start with the Quran stuff, which I did not get a chance to address.
I start with whatever I want. It's my cross-examination. Right, you don't tell me what to start with. Let's go. You accuse Catholics of worshiping Mary. What is worship according to the Bible?
Well, it doesn't matter. The question is,
it doesn't matter.
Hold on. Let me. You asked me a question.
Go ahead.
Will answer. Okay. You asked me that the issue here. You tried to point out that this was a error in the Quran. The issue is this: that when you read the Quran, you have to read it with this presupposition that all of this Son of God, God coming down in the form of a man, all this is wrong. And if all of this is wrong, then that means you are engaging in false worship.
So I'm not asking you about Jesus being God or the Son of God. We're going to return because I know it doesn't matter. And I know you don't have an answer. I'm going to ask you again. Yeah. Clearly, Muhammad was accusing these Bible Christians and these Christians that held the sacred tradition of worshiping Mary. You admitted that in your opening statement. What is worship according to the Bible? What is this distinguishing mark of worship?
Wait a second. That the question is wrong because when
what is a distinguishing mark of worship according to the Bible?
Okay, wait a second.
It's a simple
You're
question.
Me. I let you speak. Now it's my turn.
But you got to answer it. I was answering you, Nadir.
I will tell you. Okay, I will answer you from what is worship according to the Quran.
I don't care what the Quran says, Nadir. I want to know what worship is because you're accusing Christians of worship. Let's stick to the Torah. And you open up ChatGPT since you used it in your opening. Open it up. I'll let you ask the question. According to the Torah, what is worship? What is the distinguishing marker of worship, Nadir?
Okay, see, the question is wrong, and let me answer you, because if you want to know you made a claim that the Quran is wrong because it accused the Christians of worshiping Mary. So the question here is, what is worship according to the Quran, not the Bible?
Okay,
So
what
you
is
use
worship
the
according to the Quran?
Quran to
What is worship
interpret the
according? What is
Quran.
worship according to the Quran?
Okay, so let's take a look. We can take a look.
No, you're not
Uh,
putting your slides up during my cross-examination.
wait a second. Okay, I will quote for you chapter 25, verse 43. And here it says, have you seen, O prophet, the one who has taken their own desires as God, as their gods? So this is God's understand, well, Allah's understanding
It
of what
doesn't tell me
people
what worship is,
so
though. So I'm going to
yes.
ask you again,
Okay.
according to the Torah, because it doesn't tell you what
Okay.
worship is.
The
According to the
devotion.
Torah, what is
Okay.
worship according to the Torah?
Well, I don't know about the
I know
Torah
you don't know.
because I
Worship
don't
is
care
sacrifice.
about the
I know
Torah.
you don't know. Do Catholics sacrifice to
Why are
Mary?
you interpreting
Do
Islam
Catholics
with the Torah?
sacrifice? Do Catholics sacrifice to Mary?
Do Catholic? No, they don't. Not that
That
I
is
know
what
of.
that is a distinguishing marker of
Okay.
worship, Nadir.
But
What do
okay, hold on a
Catholics do
second.
that is worship of Mary? Answer it for us.
Well, what Catholics do in terms of giving, they pray to Mary. They pray for her. They pray to her.
Where
for
does the
certain
Bible
things.
say that praying, asking for intercession is worship? Because the ancient Jews did it. The ancient Jews prayed to saints. So where does the Bible say that praying
Well,
and asking for intercession, where does the Bible say that that is worship?
That's found in Islam where it's condemned, not your
I
Bible.
could care less what
Wait a
Islam
second.
says.
Okay.
In the New
So-
Testament and in the Torah,
Okay,
in the
but
Torah and
you're
the New
not
Testament,
okay, hold on a second. Let me finish.
which your
here.
Quran
To
affirms,
claim-
the
okay, hold
Torah
on.
and the
Now-
New Testament,
Okay, you're just
worship is
talking
not
over
just
me.
prayer. Go ahead, Nadir.
Okay,
I'm going to allow you to
you're
answer.
supposed to be asking me questions, and I'm
Answer
supposed to
it.
be answering. Okay?
Answer it, Nadir. Answer it.
Okay, so I'm telling you that your question is wrong because when you claim
No, it's
that
not.
the Quran has some kind of mistake in it, well, you don't go to the Bible to start interpreting Quran verses. You interpret the Quran.
You
with
didn't
the
give me the
Quran.
Quranic verse that interprets
Yes.
worship. You didn't give it to me.
Okay. Yeah,
So I
and
asked you what
so-
worship was,
okay,
and why.
so
Here's the
you-
thing, Nadir.
Okay, so now you ask
hold
me
on.
the second question.
Here's the
Where
thing,
is
Nadir.
Islam?
Why would I
Okay.
care, Nadir,
Okay.
what a book written several hundred
Okay.
years after the Torah and the Gospels
Because it
say?
has scientific
Why would
evidence
I
to back
care?
it
No,
up.
it doesn't have
Okay, now
scientific
I'll
evidence.
answer you.
It's wrong about
you
Mary.
You asked me the question. Now
So-
let me answer.
So let me
Okay,
ask
this
you.
is not your time to
Right, I'm
give
going to
a-
allow you to answer. I'm going to
Okay,
ask it.
you
Let me
said,
make
"Why
it
would I
coherent.
care?"
I'm going
Why-
to ask you
you-
in a coherent way.
Okay, why
Does
would I
the New Testament or does
No,
the
I wanna
does the
answer your
Torah or the
first
New
question.
Testament, does it present worship as asking for prayer? Does the Torah or the New Testament do that?
as asking for prayer? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't care about those things.
So
That's
then
what
let me
your
ask you
guys'
this. I don't care what the
belief
Quran says, Nadir. So then
says.
let me
Okay,
ask
but
you this.
Then don't say there's errors in the Quran.
Because very clearly the Quran is reinterpreting something that was never believed
No,
by the
okay,
early
hold on a second.
followers of the
Hold on.
Christ.
This is not your time to give refutation. You
So,
asked me a question.
right. Here's
but
my
I
next question.
I want to
Answer
answer
it.
your
Go ahead.
original question. You
Go ahead.
asked me why should I care?
I need an
what
answer
the
though,
Quran
Nadir.
says?
Give me an answer.
Well, you said, why should I care what the Quran says? Because what I'm telling you is that one of the scientific miracles of the Quran is that it will correct the scientific errors of the Bible. And this is a very good argument because now the atheists, the agnostics, and the atheists now
So
have
your argument,
endorsed
I'm going
that
to cut you off
argument.
because it's my cross-examination. Your
that's
argument
why
is
you
to
should
give no
care.
answer, is to
Okay.
simply say it's scientifically proven. You don't
Look
give
at
any
our
answer.
scientific
You
evidence.
cannot define what worship is. But in the Torah and the New Testament, worship is defined in a
I'm
way
not a Jew.
that
I don't
means
care
we
about these
don't
things.
worship Mary. So let me ask you
Okay.
another question.
Yeah.
In the first, what year did Muhammad flourish?
It was about like around 637, 632, right around
For
there. Yeah.
632 years,
Yeah.
who in church history, who in history of the Christian era defined worship the way Muhammad would define it?
I don't care about these.
I know
things.
you don't
The
care.
issue
Good.
here is
I know
what
you
does
don't care.
Islam teach about worship?
I know you don't care.
You know,
My point is
the
to show
issue
Muhammad
here
is a
you
false
hold
prophet.
on. Well, you can't
He's
talk over me.
created a
You asked
religion.
me a
Go
question
ahead.
and you're not
Answer the
letting me
question.
answer.
This is
My point
outlandish,
here is
Nadir.
My point to you here is when you make a claim that the Quran has some kind of error in it, well, you have to judge it by what the Quran and Islam and Muhammad define what is worship.
No, I do
That
not,
is how-
because that
okay,
comes
so- okay,
600
now-
years later.
So what you're
That
doing,
is far removed from
Okay.
the apostles. Let me ask
but
you this.
we have
Did Muhammad know
scientific
any
error
apostles?
to back it up. So
Did Muhammad
therefore
know any
your
of the
argument,
apostles?
Islam
Nadir.
claims. Okay, now you made a point. Now let me answer
Did
you.
Muhammad know any of the apostles?
No, he did not
No, he did
know
not.
any
Okay.
of the
Do we
apostles.
have writings that say things about Mary that Catholics believe in the first centuries after the death of Christ?
After the death of Christ, do you have stuff which talk about Mary? Perhaps, but those are all
No,
written
I'm
by
not
kooks
asking you
and
that. No, I'm
quacks.
not. Didn't ask you that, Nadir. Give me a
You
focused answer.
you have the writings
In the
of kooks and
first
quacks.
centuries,
Is
I
what
don't
you
care if
have.
you think they're kooks. In
Yeah.
the first centuries, do we have writings of people that purport to have followed the apostles that believe things about Mary that Catholics believe? Yes or no?
That Catholics believe? What I understand, I mean, specifically about Mary, whether it's come from the first century, we have like Clement of Rome. We have some very early writings of these kooks. What they wrote specifically about Mary, I don't know.
Good.
But
I'm
all of it
glad you
is
don't
bogus
know.
because you can't
I'm
prove these
glad you don't
people
know
are
because then
genuine.
after this debate, you need to do your
Yeah.
research because
Yeah.
they
It's
testify to
irrelevant.
things.
The
It is
issue, no,
relevant
I'm not
because
going
they're
to research
apostolic
that
witnesses.
because
They are
there's no proof
apostolic
for their
witnesses,
bogus
Nadir.
claims.
It is relevant because they are apostolic witnesses, Nadir.
There's
And
no
you can't point.
apostolic
You
witnesses.
just
It's all a
admitted.
myth.
You just admitted
There
to
is
the
no
audience. You
evidence for
just
these things.
admitted
All
that
right.
Muhammad, his beliefs originate 600 plus years after
There
the
is
beliefs of the
there is
followers of the
look,
Christ.
if
So
you
then let me
guys
ask you
really had
this.
this apostolic
Let me ask you
witness
this,
stuff,
Nadir.
I would follow
Here's
it.
my
But
next
it's all
question. No, you wouldn't,
mythology.
Nadir. You're blinded.
Okay.
Here's the next question. The
Yeah.
early enemies of the Christ, did they write, and in their writings, do they testify to things that Catholics believe about Mary and Jesus? The
Well,
early enemies.
like you could look at the Ebionites, the early church, which was against your church, and testified that they're a bunch of kooks and quacks. Yes, we have writings of we have historical references of
I'm
the
not talking
Ebionites
about
in
you
many other
Ebionites. I'm talking
churches.
about people that were in charge, like pagan leaders that were in charge. Do they write testifying what the followers of the Christ believe, and do those line up with Catholicism?
They do not testify that she is the mother of God. I
What
don't
does
believe there's
what
anything
does
like
Celsus
that.
say? Does Celsus admit? Does Celsus admit that Origen believed that Mary was mother of God?
What Celsus said is that he caught Christians fabricating gospels.
I
That's what
understand
he said.
Celsus is an
Is that
enemy.
true?
I know he's an enemy, but let me ask you once more.
He said they're
Does the
fabricating stuff.
enemy Celsus confirm that the Christians that he knew about believed Mary to be the mother of God? Yes or no? Even if he thought they were wrong.
Yeah, well, of course. I think they
Of
would.
course. Thank you.
If
Thank you.
you believe
The early
if-
enemies,
hold on,
the
let me-
early
hold on,
enemies,
you're not letting me
Nadir.
talk.
The enemies
Listen,
believed that the
you're cutting
followers of
off
the Christ,
listen,
the
Willie,
enemies
I let you
believed that the
talk, now it's my
followers
turn
of
to
the
talk.
Christ
Well, okay,
believed things that were Catholic.
hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Let me. This is you have to let me speak here. When you ask me a question,
Go ahead,
you
and I'm going to
cut
ask
me
you another
off.
question after. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go
hold on
ahead.
a second. I mean, so what we have from the first century is we have people who believed Jesus was divine, he is God, but then we also have people who believed he wasn't divine. So this is just common sense. If you believe Jesus is divine,
Nobody
then
part
his
of the group of
mother
Christians
gave
believe that.
birth to God.
No,
But
no
like I
Christian
said,
believed he wasn't divine. No Christian believed he wasn't divine.
no,
My
the
next question to you
Ebionites
is this:
did not believe he was divine.
the
Okay.
Ebionites also denied the virgin
Okay.
birth, and they denied the
Okay.
resurrection.
Well,
They're
nobody,
heretics.
everybody was
So then
messed
let me
up
ask
back
you
then.
this. Let me ask
Okay.
you this other
So
question. They're a
yeah.
heretical group, and
Well,
I'm
they
glad
say
you
you're a
hearken to
heretical
the
group.
heretics. You're
Okay.
right, but guess what? Clearly,
You're
our
sh-
gospel that
they're
Muhammad
bogus
believed that you could
gospels.
hearken to, our gospel that Muhammad
Yeah.
believed was still
It's
present in
all
his time,
circular
clearly believes
reasoning.
everything that I believe.
It's all
Where in?
circular.
Tell me who before Muhammad believed Holy Mary's father's name was Imran?
The issue here is, I think first of all, your argument here is that why did the Quran call Mary, or I'm sorry, I'm sorry, let me go back to the issue. I wrote down your argument. Give me 1 second here.
You take
If
all
I
your time.
understand,
ChatGPT might be able to help you out there.
well,
Hit it
yeah,
up. You use
ChatGPT
it
is
in
a
your opening.
great
You might
tool.
want to use it right now. See how
Yeah.
well it does against me. Let's see how
Okay.
well it does.
So
Type it in ChatGPT.
yeah.
Help me,
Are
ChatGPT.
you
Help
gonna allow
me.
me to speak?
Give
You
me an
asked me a
early
question.
father that believed Imran, or any early writer
I
believed
don't
the
have
name
to
was
give
Imran.
you. I don't have to give you testimony from your kooks and quack fathers.
So let me
Okay?
ask you,
The
outside of
frauds that
them,
you
let's
believe
let's
in.
forget the early
Why
fathers
should
for a
I
moment.
quote them?
Let's forget the early fathers for a moment. Let's forget
Okay.
them.
Let's
They're
forget
too
kooks and
dangerous for
quacks.
us.
Okay.
Who
These
in
frauds.
630 years
Mhm.
said that Mary's father's name was Imran? Who? Give me one.
Well, no, I don't from the hadith. If we look at the
I don't
hadith,
care what the hadith say.
okay, not
The
what the
first
hadith says.
600 years,
Okay. Well,
who says Mary's father's name is Imran?
no, I don't know of any no, don't cut me off. Okay, let me
Go
speak.
ahead. Give me the
I
answer.
don't know of any reference like that, but the religion of Islam doesn't need that because the religion of Islam has scientific, prophetic, archaeological
And I
evidence.
clearly don't believe you
Stop,
have any
please,
scientific evidence
please,
if
let
you
me, don't
cannot
cut me off.
prove
Okay,
any of these
I
beliefs.
asked
This
you
is
not to cut me off.
outlandish.
So we don't, the religion of Islam doesn't need all the things you are demanding of it because it comes with solid evidence proving it is a divine revelation. So we don't
So
need
there's
these
no
things.
answer.
Okay.
There's no answer. I just
So
believe
I
it's
think
divine and
that's
it's
where the
scientific.
scientific
I tell you
miracle
one thing, Nadir.
argument is
Earlier
gonna
today,
come
I
in.
hurt my back. My back feels really good right now because I've been carrying the load throughout this whole debate, actually providing evidence. I asked you for one writer. I don't care if it's a father, just one person that thought Mary's father's name was Imran. Are you aware there's hundreds of liturgical documents throughout history before we get to Muhammad? Why don't we just have one Nadir that says Mary's father's name is Imran? Just one.
Because the religion of Islam doesn't need
It doesn't need
prove
logic.
itself
It's what it
because
doesn't need.
it shows
doesn't
it
need
has other
logic.
evidence
It
to
doesn't
demonstrate.
need
Okay, you're just cutting
logic.
me off.
Go ahead.
William,
Go ahead.
come
Go
on.
ahead.
You know what?
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
believe the rules were
Go
that
ahead.
okay, you ask a question, I
Nadir,
answer.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
I'm going to get you
as
answered.
I've told you, so really what needs to happen here, we need to have a debate on the scientific miracles of Islam. And the things what I'm trying to get you to explain, the reason why, if you go and look in history and say, okay,
My
well, I don't
goodness, man.
find anybody named
Oh, my goodness.
Aaron or Iram, I'm sorry. We don't need that because Islam has already proved itself to be scientifically.
So I am glad
has
that you
given us
admit.
amazing miracles.
I'll let you
So
give an
now
answer for about a minute,
all
Nadir.
we need to
don't call me
know
unfair.
this book is from God and everything in the book is true because of that type of evidence. That's
So,
how Islam works.
I'm going to be very fair. I'm going to give you a full minute to just answer. It's my cross-examination. I'm going to give you a full minute to answer without interrupting. But I
Thank
just
you.
want the audience to realize you couldn't even give me one. You
We don't
couldn't
need
even
it.
give me one.
We don't.
I just needed one.
So,
I know you don't
okay.
need it for Islam because you turn your brain off in order to be Muslim.
No, because
you
of
turn it off.
scientific evidence.
So let me ask this question. I want to ask this question. I'm going to give you a minute to respond. I want to ask this question, and I'm going to give you a minute to respond. According to the Bible, according to sacred scripture and early church history, all of the early church history, worship had a distinguishing marker of sacrifice. I would like for you in the final 1 minute that you've got left to show me an example of Catholics worshiping Mary as you accuse them of worshiping her by sacrifice. You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
By worshiping her, by sacrificing to Mary? I'm not aware of Catholics sacrificing to Mary. I think what they do, they just pray to her. And that is enough in Islam to basically mark this whole issue as false worship. Because if Jesus is not God, then she cannot be the mother of God. And if you're praying to her, asking for her for things, then the Quran is right when it's saying you're taking her as gods besides Allah, because you've basically the veneration you're supposed to be giving God, you're giving it to Mary. So the issue here, you try to point out this was some mistake in the Quran. It really isn't if you read it within the proper context. You know what I would like to do, and
my time is up already. My time is up.
Church Father Polycarp, you think you can prove these things? I would like to.
Well, I gave you a full minute to speak without interrupting. Yeah. Time is
Maybe
up.
We should talk. I'd like to see what evidence you have for these claims you're making, and I will carefully.
I gave you plenty of them, and you didn't listen.
Okay,
I gave you plenty of them.
Yeah, maybe you zip by very quickly. Maybe I'm the problem here. It could be I'm the problem.
Oh, I tell you one thing. Okay, you very clearly are. But you've got 7 minutes, and if you want longer. If you want longer, so you got 7 minutes.
Can I want to give you? Okay.
Hold on. Yeah. Before you speak, I'll give you 10 minutes. I'll give you 10 minutes. Whatever. If you think you need 10 minutes, I'll give you 10
7-minute closing.
Yes, I'll give you 10 if you need 10. I'll give you 10 if you need 10.
Okay. No, I can do 7.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
So it looks like this Christianity stuff is just nothing but shoving your beliefs down people's throats. You know, it's all circular reasoning. You know, these, as Dr. Richard Carrier pointed out, these claims, I have direct access to the disciples of Jesus. These were very common frauds that were circulating around during the first century. And so if you look at it within this light, the New Testament is really not so impressive. So I asked you, okay, wait a second. You are telling us that your Polycarp and these church fathers, they were really telling the truth when they said, look, I got access to the disciples of Jesus. Okay, well, what if I understood it? And the only thing I might have, I got some of it, but what I understood him say, well, because, the Gospels agree with a lot of the things they say, and he tried to appeal to the Bible, the New Testament, but that's all circular reasoning because those church fathers eventually gave us those books. So if you ask me, like if I were to claim, look, I got access to Jesus, I got access to one of the disciples of Jesus. All right, Nadir, what's your evidence? Okay, look at this book I'm giving you here. It's all in this book. It all here. Just read this book, and it'll agree with everything I'm saying. So I'm giving you the book. This is called circular reasoning. Claims that disciples really wrote these gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Where is the evidence for that? He's just shoving it down your throat, the disciple, blah, blah, blah. And I got like some of it. Some of it I didn't get, but it's very clear William doesn't have any proof for any of these things. These are things you cannot prove nor disprove, to be very honest with you. The what it boils down to, all this appeal to church fathers stuff he's giving us, there was this false prophet named Paul. Okay, then people started believing in him. Those are the church fathers. That's And then they started making claims. Yeah, I got access to the disciples of Jesus. And they were not the only ones who made these type of claims. Everybody was making these bogus claims. And all William is doing is just blindly following these guys. When you ask him, "Where's your proof that these church fathers are not a bunch of kooks and quacks?" Oh well, look at his buddies over here, the church father buddies, Papias. This church father, he's verifying him. Uh huh. So it's like when you ask me, well, where's the evidence that I'm a disciple of Jesus, and or like I got some writings from them. Hey, let me go grab my buddies. Wife, come over here. Am I the disciple of Jesus? Yes, you are. There you go. That's pretty much the logic he is using here tonight. It's all circular reasoning. It's quackiness. Yeah, it's laughable, but I'd like to, and I, like I said, I got some of what he was talking about, but I'd like to just sit him down, and he thinks he can really prove. Like for one of these kooks and quacks was named Polycarp. Polycarp claimed he was some kind of disciple of Jesus. I'd like to just sit him down, and say and William thinks he can prove that claim. He can prove Polycarp's claim. Okay, I'd like to see that. Nobody's ever done these things. Um, the whole issue of this pagan borrowing, the beliefs which you have come from idolatry. They come from the pagan religions that I've presented to you. And maybe we didn't get to it, but he really never presented any kind of explanation on why we see these similarities between the pagan religions and what you believe in: son of God, mother of God. uh you know uh these are all coming from the idolatrous religions. And so no explanation on that. But what I would like for him to do is take his 7 minutes and very slowly walk us through why you think church fathers are truly genuine in their claims. And I'll stop calling them what Dr. Richard Carrier called them, as a bunch of kooks and quacks. I'll stop doing it if you could show me any legitimacy to these claims, and just go very slowly, because I'm an old man, and show me, and not to engage in circular reasoning. And you think you can prove these things? All right, you know, and that you can really prove that Matthew wrote Matthew, Luke wrote Luke. Okay, yeah, I like to see that evidence. And so it's just nothing but shoving your belief down people's throats. That's all we saw from William. And so really, type of debate, it really needs to go on. Really, it got to go into the Islamic evidences for Islam, because one of the big hangups of Williams is, look, at Islam came 600 years later. Why is it kind of rewriting the story here? It has no, there's no evidence that Aaron was really the Mary, or whatever what are the claims there? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. That's okay, because we don't, as I was explaining to him, we don't need this, because Islam, the way it's the truth claims of Islam, it comes with clear scientific, prophetic, and archaeological evidence to back it all up. And so we don't need to now have to go 3,000 years ago and say, okay, there, Aaron really existed. We don't need that. Now you can trust the book. You can have faith in the book that it is really saying the truth. Now, when I say that Islam is a scientific miracle, the bad news for William is now Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The atheist and the agnostic community have given a partial endorsement to our evidences. So it's not just blanket claims I'm making here today. So I'll share with you the video on my YouTube page where they have acknowledged that. And what is so shocking of what they have acknowledged? They have acknowledged that the Quran and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has corrected the scientific errors of the Bible. That's a site. Now they say I don't think it's a miracle because they said Muhammad was very intelligent back then. Okay, no problem. But there is now a consensus on the evidences for Islam. There's no consensus on any of the evidences which William is presenting to us. The world of William lives in only exists in Catholicism. There's no outside group that's ever going to endorse these circular readings. So in my last couple of seconds, I will appeal to William. In your 7 minutes, just go very slowly and walk me through the steps on when let's just take Polycarp for one as an example. Why you believe you can that the church father claims are true, you can prove it. Go very slowly. I'm going to take notes this time, all right? And show me what is your evidence to back up their claims. I'd like to see that. All right, go ahead, please.
Good. All righty. I'm going to just mute you just while I speak, just so there's no feedback on your end. We'll go ahead and we will begin right now. So, audience, we clearly saw a very one-sided debate. And it was not because Nadir is not a smart guy or sincere. It is because Islam cannot be defended, not with logic. We were told that Muhammad was intelligent, yet he made so many egregious errors, accusing Christians of worshiping, not understanding the difference between worship and veneration. There is no definition in the Quran that even tells you the distinction because Muhammad didn't know. He had no clue. We were told that, one of the identity markers is praying. Yet in the Quran, very clearly it says, indeed, Allah and his angels send blessings upon the Prophet. O you who believe, ask Allah to confer blessing upon him and ask Allah to grant him peace. Well, there is a question of whether or not, how many times we can read verses over and over to see that, and within Islam, even Muhammad made these so-called errors and these so-called heresies and these so-called problems here. Well, this is an error, a very clear error. If Nadir believes that prayer indeed is worship. Well, he says that prayer to anyone is worship. But that is not the case. There is not a single ancient Jew that believed that intercessory prayer was worship. None. And we're talking about thousands upon thousands of years, well before Islam was ever created. Intercessory prayer was never worship. Yet Muhammad doesn't know the difference and accuses Christians of worship. How do we know? Because we have early followers contemporaneous to Muhammad that are shocked and stunned at all of the errors in the Quran. No, there is no consensus of any kind of scientific miracles. That is absurd. Ask one of the top Islamic scholars on the planet, Dr. Gabriel Said Reynolds, so he can laugh at you. No, there is no consensus. That's absurd. Dr. Reynolds wouldn't believe it, and he's a very well-respected scholar in the world of Islam. He is a very well-respected scholar, one of the top in the world. He wouldn't believe that. That's absurd. We were told that all I gave him was circular evidence. I gave him the Bible. Oh, circular. Okay, how about the early followers in the first several hundred years? Oh, circular. Okay, how about the early enemies? Oh, circular. What do you mean? What do you need? Do I need to get a Polaroid out for you? Develop a Polaroid for you to understand that we have strong testimony? His testimony was a kook of Carrier. Tell me, does anybody in academia take Richard Carrier seriously? The guy's a total quack. Wouldn't survive a cross-examination against anybody well-learned. He's a quack. And yet Carrier is more important than all the evidence I gave him. I asked for one testimony, just one. Give me one, I asked. In the first 600 years of anyone calling Mary's father Imran. Not a one. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, it does matter if the only one that invented it was Muhammad, because he made a clear error there, a chronological blunder. Sister of Aaron, the father being Imran, that's ludicrous. He mixed the Marys up because he was very poorly educated. He mixed them up. Nobody in history thought Imran was the father of Mary, and we've got the father of Mary identified in the Bible, Heliakim. And in the early centuries, identified too, all throughout the early centuries, we have hundreds of liturgies. None of them thought Imran, or even any writer thought Imran was the father of Mary. That is ludicrous. A clear error by Muhammad because he was poorly educated on these matters. He said, well, show me the Gospels where, that you can trust them. Well, we know very clearly Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are testified as being eyewitnesses because the Gospels, number one, we can show through even enemies, even people that don't believe that they wrote correctly. They believe they were written within the first 30 to 60 years of the events, even if they don't believe the testimony therein. The eyewitnesses were still alive. Enemies could challenge the claims. The timing crushes that myth development theory. And you're telling me, well, St. Paul created all these things. We don't just have St. Paul writing. We've got many people writing. Luke tells you in Luke 1:1-4, he sourced from eyewitnesses. In John 19, he claims firsthand crucifixion witness. In 1 John 1:1-3, he said he saw, he heard, he touched. 2 Peter 1:16, the first pope says there were eyewitnesses of his majesty. That isn't folklore. But if he doesn't like that, we have early creedal evidence in 1 Corinthians 15. Early creedal evidence that Christ, the bodily risen Christ, appeared to Cephas, the 12, and then 500, then James. This is too early for any kind of myth or layers of invention. The claims are original, and along with those claims, they believed Mary to be the mother of God. His very holy, so-called holy book says to look to the Torah and the Gospels to confirm them. And the Gospels confirm Mary as the mother of God. External sources confirm the gospel framework. Tacitus believes Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate. Josephus as well. Pliny the Younger testifies Christ was worshipped as God. He's not a friend of the faith. If he's worshipped as God, Mary's the mother of God. The Babylonian Talmud tells you he was executed because he claimed to have performed miracles. These hostile witnesses confirm the Gospels. Archaeology supports the Gospels, not Islam. Over 600 years later, it becomes absurd. Over 600 years later, and he's asking us to trust him, to trust the Quran. But rather, we have early witnesses outside of the Bible. Well, the Bible's circular. What about Papias? He says Mark wrote from Peter's preaching, and Matthew wrote in Hebrew, Aramaic form. This is in the early 100s. St. Irenaeus, he affirms Matthew in Hebrew, Mark from Peter, Luke from Paul's circle, John the Apostle. These are independent early attestations. And I can go on and on. We have early witnesses. We have an unbroken chain of witnesses. We can go throughout history and show a chain. He cannot do that. His best testimony, when I say give me a chain of testimony, give me a chain of witness, it doesn't matter. It's all he said all night. It doesn't matter. I said, okay, the first 600 years, it doesn't matter. Give me an enemy. It doesn't matter. Give me anybody within the circle of Christ. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. All you have to do is rely on the Sola Quran alone. But if the Quran is up for debate and we're challenging the Quran for all of these errors, you can't rely on the very work being challenged for your evidence. Enemies confirm our faith. Early followers confirm our faith. He doesn't have any of that. He doesn't. I asked for just give me anything defining what worship is, man. It doesn't matter. Let me tell you what the Quran says, and then he can't define it. There were two things on stage tonight, two different positions. One had evidence, the other clearly didn't. You audience, judge with your own eyes, and you judge which religion you think is the correct one historically. Is it Catholicism or Islam? I think the answer was very clearly on display tonight. Thank you. I'm going to unmute you because I unmuted you. There we go.
Okay. So just a quick question. What do you think about my invitation here that you believe that you can prove church fathers are really genuine? I want to give you an opportunity to walk me through the so-called evidence that you have. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I would love to do
But
it.
you got to go very slowly for me, okay? And you
That's fine. You've
let's
got this
just take an
debate to
example.
rewind and watch it as well, but I'd be willing to
Yeah,
do that. There's no
yeah.
worry.
Like, can you take about maybe 15 minutes for me? We could talk about this stuff that you can believe. I mean, you believe that you can prove that the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses, by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, you can prove all these things you're saying.
If you want to add 5 minutes going back and forth, most definitely I can
Well,
do
okay, I
that.
tell you
But
what. Let's
15
just
minutes
start
is a
with
little too long because
Polycarp.
I've got to go in a moment.
Okay,
So
you
15
believe
minutes is
like
too long.
Polycarp was one of your church fathers. He claimed to have been a disciple of John, which, by the way, was a very common hoax back then.
No, it
So you
wasn't.
believe,
Here's another problem, Nadir.
yeah.
It may be among the Gnostics who Irenaeus condemned, but it was not a common hoax amongst the followers, Nadir. No, you're
Okay,
wrong.
okay.
You're wrong.
So
Hold on. Let me
who are
put that.
the
I'm going to put the
follow?
timer. I'm going to put the timer in
Yeah.
5 minutes
Okay,
because
so
I do
help
have to
me
be strict with the
understand
time.
this.
Hold on,
Only
Nadir. Let me
so
put the
you do
timer.
accept people were fabricating gospels. You do accept that this were
They're
very common claims.
they're condemned in the
Okay.
Gospels. Why would I not, Nadir?
Okay, okay.
The very Gospel authors condemn
Polycarp
them.
is a disciple of Jesus, and so what's the evidence for that?
Polycarp is a disciple of Saint John, my friend.
I'm
Saint
sorry,
John
Saint John.
is a
I said
disciple.
Jesus. Saint John. Yeah. So what's the
Yes.
evidence for that?
The evidence would be Saint Irenaeus. Saint
Okay.
Irenaeus evidence, but hold on, I'm not done. I'm
Okay.
not done, Nadir. It isn't just Saint Irenaeus. Saint Irenaeus was already aware of this because the church was aware of this. So there's that unbroken testimony by the time, and Irenaeus is in the 100s. By the time we get to Irenaeus, he witnesses to this, and by the time we get to Saint Jerome in his On Illustrious Men, this is very well known throughout all church history. So I've got an early eyewitness testimony.
Okay, because the church
I'd say
said
that's
so.
a little bit better than waiting for 600 years, right?
Okay, so
A little bit better, right?
your evidence, which you're stating that you can prove these things, is because his buddies said he is, right?
My evidence are 3 pillars that I erected that tonight you could deal with none of them. One pillar was sacred
Wait a second, I want to
scripture.
talk about the Irenaeus thing.
The
You said,
other, right, but
okay, so
my
his
pillars were
buddies
sacred
in
scripture.
the church
Sacred
promoted
scripture
this
was my
idea.
pillar 1.
Wait, hold on.
Sacred tradition was my pillar 2.
William,
And the
we're
enemies
giving
of
too much.
of the
That's
faith
too much information.
or my pillar. No, but I'm not going to allow you to fabricate stuff, Nadir. I'm
No,
not
I'm
going to allow
trying
you
to
to
get a
fabricate stuff,
clarification
man.
from you.
I mean,
I'm
come
trying to
on,
get
man.
clarification from you. So you believe that Polycarp was genuine in his claim because
I
the
know he
other
was.
people in the church, like Irenaeus, basically backed him up and said, "Yep, this guy's right." That's your evidence.
Let me
Am I
answer
right?
that for you.
Just
No,
answer yes
Nadir,
or no.
yet again, no, Nadir,
is that
you're
right or
wrong
wrong?
again. The reason that I believe Polycarp's testimony is correct is because Polycarp says things about Christ, indicating Christ is Almighty God. These things are confirmed by Irenaeus, but not just Irenaeus. The things Polycarp is saying is confirmed by the enemies. By the enemies. The enemies knew these followers had certain beliefs and they called them out for them. They may condemn them, but the beliefs that the followers of the Christ have match up with the Catholic beliefs, not with Islam.
Well,
The creation of Muhammad comes way later.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So you're saying
well,
that
well, Islam has got to be front and
so let's look
Islam's got to be in trial as well.
So let's look at some of this other evidence you're presenting. So you're saying, okay, you do see this circular reasoning.
No, I don't.
Of
no,
just
I don't. You're wrong.
To your buddies. You know,
no, if I only use the Bible and I said the Bible alone, the way you tried to use the Quran alone tonight, which was hilarious. No, that would be circular.
I have a question for you.
That would be circular.
So now you're saying that some of the enemies of the church did confirm what Polycarp said. Therefore, you believe that makes him true in his claim that he was a disciple of the apostle.
No, what
John,
makes
right?
what makes it certain that he was a disciple of John clearly was not the enemies. You're not following the logic. I'm saying that I believe what Polycarp said because the enemies of the faith confirm everything that he taught was believed by the first followers of the Christ. I'm telling you that I trust him because the primary source is in the apostolic lineage is Saint Irenaeus, and he tells us that Polycarp remembers the words of the eyewitnesses. He gives direct eyewitness testimony that Polycarp personally knew John, was taught by him, and was ordained by the apostles. This would have been this could have been easily refuted by anyone there in the circle, and it never was. These are assertions that can be proven because nobody within the church ever condemned it. Irenaeus was a bishop. I just told you there's an unbroken line. I just told you there's no broken line.
You do understand that all these claims you're making, about apostolic authority, were also made by other churches, like the Ebionites claimed apostolic authority.
And they were already condemned early on by the followers of the Christ. So here's the interesting thing.
Condemned them.
Right.
But
And
do you
my
see where I'm
church
going here? These
and
are
my
very
no,
common
no, my
claims.
friend, you're not understanding. You're not understanding the
Okay.
tiebreaker here. You're
Okay.
saying, oh, well, look.
Okay.
These other people also claim to be from the Christ. The problem is this, Nadir, and you're not getting it. It isn't going in. The problem is that the enemies of the faith testify that the followers of the Christ worshiped him as God. These
Okay.
other
Okay.
groups that were
Let's
condemned didn't believe
unpack
this.
that. Can we
These
unpack
other
that?
groups that were condemned, these other groups that were condemned didn't believe these things that the apostolic Christians believe.
Okay.
If you
Let
want,
me
I can
unpack that.
go. Hold
Okay.
on.
You're going too quick for me. Because I'm
Well, we've
slow
we've
again.
gone for over 5 minutes. If you want
Okay.
one last answer, I can show you that unbroken line from Irenaeus and beyond. I can go into the
So
later
you do
church history.
you do acknowledge that these fabulous claims which the church made were all of apostolic authority, sitting down with the disciples and getting the message from them. You do acknowledge,
Eyewitness authority. That's what they were.
okay, you do
Eyewitness.
acknowledge that other churches made similar claims, actually
Incorrect.
identical claims, that they had apostolic authority. The Ebionite Church made the claim, but
No, sir.
what you
They
said,
did not make identical claims. You are
they did. They
incorrect.
claimed
No.
apostolic authority
Quote it for me right now. Quote the text from the
Okay.
Ebionites right now.
from the
ChatGPT.
Ebionites.
Quote it for me right
Okay.
now.
Okay,
And I'm
no
going to warn you,
problem.
ChatGPT gives fake quotes. I'm going to bust you really badly if you don't
Okay,
find a real
so
one.
you're saying that apostolic authority.
You're very
Wait a
worried
second.
there, right? You're very worried
No,
there.
hold on a second. No,
There
I
is
have
no
no
claim of
problem.
there is no claim. There is no quote of the Ebionites showing that they were correct and that the early enemies believed they
But they
worshiped
claimed
Jesus
it.
the way the early followers did, and they were corrected and condemned. And the early enemies,
Your
Nadir,
church condemned them.
Nadir,
Yeah.
Nadir, listen, Nadir. The early enemies are aware of only one group that followed the Christ. It isn't going in. The early enemies, the pagans, they're writing. They're
Can I share
aware
my
of
screen?
one group. No, it's already gone over 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll share this with you because I opened the doors for you today. I'll share that with you. The early enemies, Nadir, the early enemies give us witness. They give us witness what the followers of the Christ believe. They don't say, well, the followers of the Christ believe what the Ebionites believe. No, they tell you what the early followers believe, and it lines up with Catholicism. It doesn't line up with your faith, Nadir. That is your problem, Nadir.
Okay,
I'd like
so
to go
you're
to the super
saying
chats because I
you're
do have to go soon. I do have to go
okay.
soon.
I'm sorry. I just had
No,
to
there's
figure
no
out what
worry.
your
If you want to
evidence
have a
and
whole
stuff was.
debate on church fathers, I'd be
Okay.
willing to do it. I just got to warn you. I don't
Okay.
think you do well in that one either.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, what you're
Oh.
presenting as evidence is so circular. It's just
Well,
like
we'll ask the audience.
it does
Enemies
come-
circular.
it does come down to because my church
Oh.
said it. Therefore, it's
No.
true.
No, very clearly, enemies
Irenaeus,
of the faith.
come here. Am
Very
I
clear.
true? Yes, you are.
Well,
That's
here's the
what you're
problem.
presenting
Here's
to
the
us.
problem. No, you're incorrect. The accusation, your accusation would be correct if I was only using Christian sources. If I was only applying
so what
that
else- other
to
evidence
my
you have?
testimony, what I have applied, I've read plenty earlier, and I've showed you him. There's Suetonius, there's many others, and
Yeah.
there's even Celsus. I gave you many examples
He
that
said
these
you guys are
enemies,
fabricating
that
gospels.
these enemies, right? They did. They were
Okay.
not believers,
No, he
but
said
they
you guys were doing it.
they were. You're right. They weren't believers, but what they're
So how do we
saying
know we
is
don't got those fabrications?
they
then?
are telling us what the followers of the Christ believed. No, Celsus doesn't say they're fabricating gospels. He doesn't
Yeah,
even
they
believe
did.
in the
He
gospel.
said that the
No, he
Celsus
doesn't.
said that you're
No, he doesn't. He doesn't even believe in the gospel. That's silly. The Gnostics made that
Okay,
claim,
can
and the
I give you
Gnostics
a
were
reference
condemned
for
in the
that?
Bible.
But okay, so
Nadir,
So-
Nadir,
but
you had your chance during the debate. We're going to go to the.
I'm just trying to understand what you're. Well, I wanted to understand what.
And
you
I've given
claim
you
this evidence
several
was.
hosile witnesses. I gave you
Okay.
Josephus,
All right, I think
Tacitus,
you're
Pliny,
right. We maybe we should
Suetonius.
move on.
I mean, you got to do the research if you don't know it. I gave you Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny,
Okay.
Suetonius. That's all outside collaboration. That's outside. That's not circular, man.
All
Let's
right.
go to the first one. AB. It's for you. Nadir, since Islam affirms the Bible, how do you square the topological connections in the Old and New Testaments with respect to Mary?
The Quran affirms that the Bible has been corrupted and changed by man. And as we saw in tonight's debate, a bunch of pagan beliefs got into the Bible, like Mary, the mother of God, and God, son of God, and all these things. So, and so I'm open for that debate. In fact, the Christians don't want to debate that with me, but that's okay. But I think the point, I think I've answered that question. So, but if you want to debate this, I can show you that the Quran actually confirms that the Bible is corrupt, We could always do that
We
debate.
can most definitely have that debate. I'd love to have the debate because very clearly AB is correct. The Quran commands belief in the Torah and the gospel. It requires Muslims to believe the Torah and the gospel. He sent down the Torah and the gospel before as guidance for mankind. Yeah, it does confirm it. It does. It says, let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has sent down in it. And what is in the gospel, what is presented in there, refutes Islam 100 times over. It refutes Islam soundly.
We're making
Completely.
some money here. That was like $10.
Sure.
All right.
Dennis, I don't know how much
How
that
much
is.
do I get a cut out of this?
You get the ability to tell the audience that I obliterated your theology. That's what you get.
Okay. I guess you-
DKK. The moon symbol was used by many pagans before Islam. You can respond to that because he made an assertion. Take that as a question. I'll allow you to respond to that.
So the moon symbol actually has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. As the centuries roll by, people kind of attributed the moon symbol to Islam. So it actually doesn't have anything to do with it. I think one question I have for you, William, you said that I think you denied the claim that that the atheists and agnostics did not endorse the scientific miracles of the Quran about correcting the scientific errors of the Bible. If you like, I can show you that evidence.
I don't care what atheists or agnostics. If they're your best friends, that tells us everything.
Well, about them acknowledging scientific evidence,
Care
is
less
pretty
what
good.
they say. I mean, your main
Okay.
guy is Carrier. That tells me everything. The guy's a total joke. Let him know. Tell him no. Let him know. Forward this to him of me saying that. And if Carrier wants to come and challenge me, I will obliterate his theology as well. You let
Okay.
Carrier know that I'm calling him
Sure.
out. Show him the
All
clip.
right.
Dennis RB, the least church father is more trusted than Muhammad. Now, I don't have any comment on the moon symbol.
Okay, I
I
will
don't
answer
know.
that.
You can answer
I'll-
that. Yeah, I'm allowing you. Nadir, I'm
No.
being very fair. I'm allowing you to answer it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so, and unfortunately, because this was not a debate on the church fathers, so I didn't get a chance to show you how the church fathers are actually cursed. They're responsible for the Holocaust. As every academic, scholar, and historian have pointed out, it was Justin Martyr who was the one who basically introduced the anti-Semitism into Christianity. I can give you the reference from the Jewish Virtual. If you just type in Google Jewish Virtual Library Justin Martyr, they cite him as a one who introduced anti-Semitism into the Christianity, which eventually led to the Holocaust. And the exact verse which he quoted from the New Testament was the one about that the Jews killed Jesus. This is called deicide. Deicide, which is found in the Bible, which is quoted by Justin Martyr. He used that, and that is the root cause of the Holocaust and 2,000 years of suffering. So your church fathers are cursed. Not only are they responsible for the Holocaust, but they're also responsible for spreading AIDS. All of that will be made available for you inside the debate on the topic.
I don't know how to even
When we
answer
show you
that,
your
man.
cursed church fathers have brought so much suffering and
Nadir, you're
misery
wild, man.
into
I
the
gotta
world.
tell you. So I'm gonna
The reference is Jewish Virtual Library. If you like, I can share that reference for you.
Let me answer.
But
That's wild.
he doesn't
Nadir.
want to discuss that.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if you think that anybody's going to take that seriously.
That's
But
every scholar,
the
academic,
Holocaust, no, it's not
historian
every
will say
scholar.
that.
You're
Can I show you
very
the
incorrect.
evidence?
No, it's not. It's every single scholar in the Holocaust. It's definitely not that because I
Yeah,
know
see,
many
they
that don't
trace
believe
it
that.
back to the
So
Bible.
the Holocaust
And
was
Justin Martyr.
motivated by racial biology, nationalism, and neo-pagan
Would
ideology.
you allow me
In
to
fact,
share my screen?
I don't know if you know. No, I'm not going to because these are super chat
Okay.
questions. The debate's over already.
Okay.
We're just
You can
answering
do church
questions.
fathers and talk
So
about them.
the fathers condemned hatred and violence.
No,
The
Justin
early
Martyr
fathers
is an
never
anti-Semite.
ever taught. No, he was not. The Justin Martyr never ever taught racial hierarchy, eugenics, or extermination of the Jews. They never
I've
ever
given
taught. He
my
never taught that.
reference.
He never taught that. And Hitler himself said, he said he didn't care the least about believing in Christ as God. In fact, Hitler made some pretty positive testimonies towards Islam, positive testimonies about Islam. Now, I got to say this. Would I use that to disprove Islam? Why would I? That's such a low-hanging fruit. Instead, I rely on evidence. I rely on historical testimony, and I pulverize bad arguments with that. I don't need to make silly arguments like the early fathers caused the Holocaust, because they very clearly didn't. There is no evidence of that either. And in fact, anti-Semitism is fundamentally different from anything the early fathers said in correcting the Jews for being wrong and having gone astray in their religion. It's very, very different. Jimmy H says, Nadir, with all due respect again, how do you get around that early Christianity doesn't resemble Islam at all? We wouldn't be able to trust any ancient history with your standard of evidence. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so we have to understand that you are only following a group of kooks and quacks and frauds of the early Christianity, and so there are other churches as well. There's the Ebionite church as well as the Gnostics, and so what really wind up happening is nobody is really 100% right here. They all have a little bit of truth. I wanted to correct William, where he said that that the Ebionites did not claim apostolic authority. They did. All of what you heard tonight about the so-called, one church father confirming the other, the Ebionite church did the same thing. They all have the same claims, the same, and so the question here is, well, how do you know which church really is the true church? He says, well, those people stand condemned by my church. Well, they condemned you too. You see, so the point here is Islam does resemble early Christianity, but but they all contradicted each other. And I think the big joke we heard tonight is where William thought he could prove his kooks and quacks were the right ones, and the Ebionites and all the other people were all wrong, and his group is the right one. And I gave him ample time to really look at, what are you talking about that really proves your church is the right one? And we just found circular reasoning. The books, the Bible said it. That you see these arguments, they all agree with what the Bible says. Well, they're the ones who gave us these books. So of course it's going to agree. They're not going to give us books which expose them. But now the circular reasoning of William here, he thinks he can prove the true church.
Well,
It's a delusion. It was what it is. It's a
well,
delusion.
well, it's pretty ludicrous the fact that I quoted tons of early enemies: Suetonius, Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny, and those apparently don't exist. Only the early fathers exist. We had no answers for the enemies. None. We had none. Instead, we're hearing there's a bunch of early churches. No, there weren't. There was one. St. Ignatius tells you it's the Catholic Church. And that is incredibly early on. It would predate the second century, meaning by the first century, we already know that there is a one universal church with a one kind of hierarchy. There are not multiple churches. No, the Ebionites were not the true church. They weren't even a competitor. And we know that because the enemies tell us. I've relied a lot upon hostile witnesses to obliterate the theology of Nadir. And the Ebionites obliterate that, because the early Christians everywhere confessed Jesus to be fully divine, and the early enemies knew that. Born of the Virgin Mary, died and rose bodily, and on and on. The Ebionites denied the divinity. And yet we're told by Pliny that the Christians worship Christ as God. So clearly, those that follow the Christ could not have been the Ebionites, and I'm not even quoting an early father. If Jesus is not God, there is no Christianity. No apostle taught Ebionitism, if you will. They practiced heresy, and they were condemned from the beginning. We are told, well, they were one of the early ones. No, they're not. What do you mean? Acts 10, Acts 15, Galatians, and Ephesians, they show the true church included Gentiles without Mosaic observance. Nadir doesn't even know what the Ebionites are. But this is common stuff you're going to hear from Muslims when they're desperate and they're on the ropes. But they rarely come up against somebody like me that knows church history like the back of my hand. The Ebionites are ludicrous to point to them. They rejected the apostolic scriptures, Paul's epistles, the New Testament, the Gospels, that his own religion affirms. This is ludicrous, guys. Ludicrous. AB says, Nadir, since you brought us Tertullian, how do you reconcile the affirmation of the virgin birth in De Carne Christi, on the flesh of Christ, that writing of his?
Well, if you're talking, we as Muslims actually do believe in the virgin birth. We believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, but the belief about God, that giving birth to God, that's a pagan belief. And now now I was not able to answer every single objection in tonight's debate discussion. That's just because of time. I didn't get the opportunity to do so. But the issue tonight here.
Let me just be clear here. I'm only going to interrupt very, very briefly. Yeah. I'm only going to interrupt very briefly. I did suggest a much longer debate, and you wanted a much shorter one.
I didn't know so many points were going to be raised, to be very honest with you. But that's okay. That might have been my fault. But look, we have the answers for everything here. Not that I have all the answers, but Islam does. But so, yeah, just a matter of time. I didn't get a chance to address all the points. But the issue here tonight is we really never heard, why does this Christian belief resemble pagan idolatry so much? That is something, and there was no good explanation for why is that. So you really need to wonder how much of what I believe is from some pagan mythology. That's what my advice for you, AB.
Yeah, AB, I think you're on a great point there because the biblical claims are completely unique. And that is what Justin Martyr indicates as well. They're very unique. And I would recommend, as you probably have already seen, AB, go watch my debate against Dr. Price. I would estimate that Dr. Price is the very best when it comes to the whole pagan argument. And we'll see how well Dr. Price did in that debate, where he accused Christianity of ripping off from pagan deities. We'll see how well he did there. And I'd be willing to have a whole debate on that topic with Nadir if he believes he has the case there. The fact of the matter is the claims of Christianity are completely unique. And Mary as Theotokos is Christological. It is Christological and Mariological. It says nothing about Mary being older than God or anything about paganism. There is no pagan religion that ever taught Theotokos or anything even remotely similar. The pagan myths were very, very different. The gods were not eternal, first off. In pagan myths, sometimes certain gods were born from other gods that weren't eternal. The mother was also a goddess, but Mary is mortal. Mary is a creature. She's not divine. She bore God incarnate in time, not in eternity. That is error number one from the Quran, from Muhammad. He didn't understand the difference. He accused Christians of idolatry, but he clearly didn't understand the difference between veneration and worship. Hollywood Big Boss has a lineage there that he wants to lay out for you. Do you have a response in terms of the fathers being reliable via that lineage that he laid out for you? Do you have a response?
So Justin Martyr, the accursed person who caused the Holocaust, that's a scientific fact. I mean, I'm sorry, that's a historical fact which all historians agree. Okay, all historians agree that this is an evil man. I gave you the reference, but William, this is going to come down to the debate on church fathers, which I hopefully we can do, and I'll show you. And this is again. This is not Nadir Ahmed's opinion. This is what every academic scholar, they all cite a passage in the Bible about the Jews killing Jesus, and that served as the root cause of the Nazi Holocaust. Says who? Says the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. So the question here, when you cite these church fathers, the question tonight, when you see the evil they have brought into the world, you need to ask yourself, how much of this is demon inspired? Now, as for this chain, all these kooks and quacks of the Roman Empire, they were all arguing the same thing, that, hey, look, we have this direct access to the apostles. The Ebionite church did claim apostolic authority. So when you look at it in light of of the early church history, these guys really do look like a bunch of kooks and quacks. And to correct, William, Celsus did accuse the Christians of writing gospels. I will give you one reference. They caught one guy actually fabricating gospels, and they asked him, "Why'd you do it?" He says, "I did it for the love of Paul." Go ahead and Google that. For the love of Paul, fabricating gospels. You can read about this. So these are all common lies that you people are just blindly following. You're blindly following the assertions and affirmations and faith proclamations of these kooks and quacks and these wicked, evil men like Justin Martyr. Again, my reference, Justin Martyr, Jewish Virtual Library, where you can see he's the one who introduced this the horrors of anti-Semitism. But like I said, that'll come with the church fathers debate, where we talk about how evil and wicked these people were.
Unfortunately, the history that Nadir likes to concoct for you all is a history made up, fantasy. The idea that all, and we hear that all the time, all, and yet there's no evidence. There's no evidence. He gives us a website. I'm going to give you actual scholars. Professor of church history, Oscar Scottstown, which, by the way, I've got his major work. It's one of the most major works ever done on Justin Martyr. One of the top 3 major ones ever done. And never at all is he portrayed as an anti-Jewish aggressor. This is ludicrous. But Nadir doesn't know the early church father writings. He's not familiar with them. What he claimed about people fabricating gospels is ludicrous. That was being done by heretical Gnostic groups. Those that were condemned by the church, they're condemned in the Bible. Why would you hearken to people that the followers of the Christ condemned? Well, in the world of Nadir, they may be valuable to hearken to, even though his very Quran says that we can go to the gospel. And in those gospels, they're condemning these Gnostics already. But apparently Nadir wants his cake and he wants to eat it too. I'll give you another scholar, a personal friend of mine, which shows you how ludicrous these claims are. Because Nadir doesn't realize I got friends in high places. The Reverend Dr. Booker is one of the top scholars of the planet. He wrote a whole work on St. Justin the Martyr, including a massive work where he includes Justin Martyr. Nowhere does he believe Justin was one that was an aggressor or anti-Semitic ever. No, you don't have historians or scholars arguing that. You got Nadir telling you that because it helps Nadir's theology to try to portray these people as quacks, even though these are the people who very clearly gave us the Gospels, preserved the Gospels, handed them down. The very Gospels Muhammad would later have and would later affirm and confirm. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow. We keep hearing about the Ebionites, but there's no apostle or anyone that traces them to apostolic origin. There's no ancient source. He can't even quote one. I would challenge him to quote one. And their doctrines, yet again, demonstrate non-apostolic origin. And we know that because the enemies of the faith demonstrate what the followers of the Christ believe, and it's not what the Ebionites believe at all. Rosarium tells you, Nadir, or he asks you, Surah 4, 157 says that the Jews boasted about killing the Messiah, yet modern-day Jews reject Jesus as the Messiah. Can you tell me at what point in history the Jews changed their stance on Jesus being the Messiah?
Oh, hold on, maybe this. Surah 4 says that the Jews boasted about killing the Messiah, yet modern-day Jews reject Jesus as the Messiah. Okay, can you tell me at what point in history the Jews changed their stance on Jesus being the Messiah? So, well, first of all, let me quote to you. This is why you should be a Muslim. This is Surah 4, verse 157. You see, first of all, let me first answer your question. I'll talk to you about the surah. Because this is really a battle between good and evil. The issue here is that they were mocking Jesus. And you'll also find the same thing in the Bible where they say, "You're the king of the Jews." There's a verse in the Bible which they actually mock. So both the Quran, the New Testament, as well as the Quran do record that the Jews mocked Jesus by calling him Messiah, mocked him by calling him King of the Jews. So this is clear from both our books. But look, this is my point. This is why Islam is a true religion. Remember what I told you. I'm going to give you a second reference. Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. This is just put in YouTube, Yad Vashem, and I'm going to give you the video, which I'm quoting for you. It's called "The Roots of Nazi Ideology," Yad Vashem. They quoted 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, I forget where it says, the Jews killed Jesus. They crucified him. They quoted that as one of the roots of the Nazi ideology, as well as 2,000 years of suffering. Now look at this. Look at how much evil and how much suffering your the curse of Thessalonians caused upon the Jews, only to be and it was Justin Martyr who took that verse and spread it all throughout Christianity. Reference, Jewish Virtual Library, Justin Martyr. Now look what Allah says inside chapter 4, verse 157. And they did not kill Jesus. Now go to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. Go to any Jewish reference on the Holocaust. You'll never see Quran verses there. You will see Bible verses there. So this verse took that horrible stigma of being God killers, deicide, and removed it from the Jewish people. It removed that horrible stigma. And so that's what I follow. A verse which has brought peace and mutual respect to the Jewish people. It's about good and evil. You are choosing evil over good. Surah 4, verse 157 is good. 2 Thessalonians, I forgot the name of the verse, I think 2:22, that's an evil verse in your book, which is responsible for so much suffering. Says who? Every scholar, academic, and historian on the topic. It's unanimous on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely not unanimous. It's ridiculous. I can name one that doesn't say that. Dr. Scott Hahn. He's one of the very best biblical scholars. It's ridiculous.
What?
Dr. Bergson was another one. I can name multiple scholars that don't say that. Let me speak. I don't interrupt when you're speaking. This is ridiculous. Now, these are really bad arguments, but nothing changes. First off, the idea that 1 Thessalonians says that Jews are cursed for killing Jesus is ridiculous. St. Paul does not say all Jews kill Jesus. The passage is very often misquoted by people that are anti-Christian. They're anti-Christian. They don't read it. Because if you read the text and you lay it out in the Greek, which I've got open in front of me, it tells you Jews in Judea, it limits the scope to those responsible historically. But those aren't only people responsible. St. Paul doesn't say all Jews everywhere kill Christ. That would be the same way this is the same way we would say the Romans crucified Jesus, without meaning every Roman in the world participated. So this is yet again ridiculous, because Paul himself is a Jew. And he tells you himself, I am a Jew in Acts 22:3. If he meant all Jews were cursed, he'd be cursing himself. So this idea that, well, the early fathers caused this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care what some people say. These weird people he's quoting, there are a lot of scholars that don't agree. And of course there's scholars that hate the early fathers because they refuted Judaism. St. Justin the Martyr refuted Judaism as it was developing and abandoning ancient teachings. Just like the Bible refutes modern day Judaism and the Judaism that rejected the Christ. Of course people are going to hate them and accuse them of all kinds of atrocities. There is nothing there. There is nothing behind these claims. And yet again, go read Thessalonians for yourself, ripped and wrenched out of context.
Well, you should
Lino
allow me to
Molina.
share my desktop if you would, so I can show these references if you would.
Lino Molina says, you accuse Christians of imposing our religion on others. Yet historically and today, Islam spreads by force, death, and destruction. I will allow you to respond to that.
Yeah, that's mythology. This is, like I said, now if you can prove that, then I will leave Islam today, if you could prove any of this. But what I'm accusing the Bible of doing is incitement to hate. Okay, the verse which I would quote it for you, it does state in the Bible that the Jews killed Jesus. That's clearly written in the Bible. Now I'm going to quote for you the Simon, and I have all this references if you allow me to share my screen. I'm quoting for you the Simon Wiesenthal Center of Buenos Aires says, called this belief as a defamatory reference to the Vatican propaganda, which is actually not Vatican propaganda, is the teaching of the Bible and Justin Martyr, that resulted in the persecution and murder of Jews for 2 millennia. Says who? Simon Wiesenthal Center. So I've quoted you Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. I've quoted for you, the Jewish Virtual Library. And they all, again, all scholars, historians are unanimous in this viewpoint that it was that verse in the Bible. I said 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 22. That actually is a wrong verse. The verse which, that's a wrong quotation. The verse which teaches that, let me correct myself, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14, from the Jews who killed the Lord Jesus and prophets and also drove us up. So what it did, it incited people to anger and hatred that caused the Holocaust. Says who? Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. I've given you that reference. And, if you claim that I'm just making this stuff up, William, to be very honest with you, just let me share my screen and I will show you all these references. All right.
The issue is that we're not, the debate is over. We're answering questions from the audience right now. So it will take a long time. I'm trying to get to these. Okay. And I appreciate it. If you have more time, we'll get to more. We got about 5, 7 more. But let me answer that yet again. So let's go over, since this is a sticking point in 1 Thessalonians 2:15, yet again. So we're going to have to go over the Greek because, yet again, Nadir continues spreading this. I don't care what websites he quotes. I don't care what scholars. To claim that they're unanimous, all of them, is outlandish. I just quoted 2 that don't agree with him. And those are two top scholars. They don't agree with him. If you look at 1 Thessalonians 2:15, the verb apoktaino, to kill and put to death, meaning to be responsible for the death, you look at that and that's a collective historical sense. Those among the Jews who rejected God, the prophets, and the Christ. It isn't a blanket ethnic condemnation. The Bible doesn't do that. And the early followers of the faith recognize that. That is exactly identical to the way the Bible says Israel killed the prophets, even though the Gentiles carried out the execution. For instance, Babylon. The grammar does not also exclude the Roman responsibility. The Bible is very clear that they did as well. In fact, Paul tells you Romans crucified Jesus. He tells you right there in Acts 13, 27 to 29. And in 1 Corinthians 2:8, he even tells you the rulers of this age crucified him. Those are the Romans, not the Jews. Those are the Romans. So to claim that this teaches anti-Semitism is to not understand the verse. It's to have no idea what the verse actually says. And by the way, in terms of evidence of military conquest of Islam, I think that there's a lot of evidence of that. A lot. Lino Molina, you're 100% right. There's a lot of evidence of that, of spreading the religion by force. But of course, I am here. I am here to debate the issues. And the issue is who has the correct Mary on front and center. That is the issue. And I think that tonight you all have seen a very clear answer as to who has given the best presentation. And I don't think Nadir even gave a serviceable one. But here we got a great question. Now we have one that I love this one from Ari. Both give me your strongest argument that Mary in the Bible and the Quran is a true Mary. Nadir,
Mhm.
Quran, William, Bible. I appreciate that. Ari, God bless you for your support.
Sure.
Thank you for that question. We get a phenomenal one. Go ahead, Nadir.
The death of 6 million Jews. All scholars and historians agree. They trace it back to that passage
For
in the
Mary,
Bible.
you're telling me
Hold
that
on, hold on. Let me explain. You see,
what?
all
Nadir,
the-
stick to
the-
the
hold
question
on a
though,
second.
Nadir, or
The-
we're never going to finish if you don't
Okay,
stick to
okay.
the
Look,
question.
look,
Come on,
look.
Nadir.
The issue here is
It's
when
wild.
we heard it's chapter 4. It's chapter 4, verse 157. Look.
But give your strongest argument and lay it out.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
allowing you. I'm
will.
not going to
Hold
interrupt. Go
on.
ahead.
Okay, don't interrupt me. See, what we heard tonight when we heard, well, we said, okay, why do you believe in the Mary, which William believes in? It says the church fathers. This is part of our church tradition, stuff like that. Okay, but as I have pointed out to you, and when the church father debate comes around, your church fathers have brought so much suffering and misery into the world for the Jewish people. Okay, chapter 4, verse 157 comes 600 years later, and removes the harmful stigma of deicide, God killer, from the Jewish people. And that's why when you look at Islam, you never see that Jews are being persecuted for being Christ killers, as we have seen inside Christianity because of Justin Martyr. The
But
issue
Nadir,
here,
you're not
the
answering the
issue here is
question though,
about
Nadir.
good
Come on,
versus
Nadir.
evil.
This,
The Islam has
I'm
brought
being very
good
kind to you, Nadir.
into
You
the
got to answer
world.
the question.
Your
So,
wicked, evil church fathers has
okay, I'm going
brought
to answer
so
now.
much suffering into this world.
Now I'm going to answer
That's
since
why
you
you should
rambled.
believe in the Mary of the Quran.
Yeah, so this
Simple
is
logic.
you rambled yet again. Yet again, no evidence that the church fathers were murderers. No evidence at all. All he does is quote websites, tells you they did all this, even though they didn't do any of it. There's no evidence of it. No firsthand source. All he does is quote web pages for you. I could care less what those web pages say. I have quoted Titan scholars, and I've even quoted the fathers themselves. There's no evidence they were anti-Semitic. But if that is his ticket to try to save face tonight, he can keep repeating that 1,000 times over. The very person that sent this super chat is wondering, why didn't he answer my question? I will answer it for you, though. And I don't need to go off on all these wild rants. The Quran's Mary, the Maryam, is a composite character. Muhammad was very ignorant of who Mary really was. It is a composite character confused with Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron, and it cannot be the same historical person as Holy Mary, the Mother of God, described in the Bible. That makes the Quran's teaching historically inaccurate by its own internal claims, Ari. And we've seen tonight as I've challenged him over and over for evidence, and he says it doesn't matter. The Quran itself is all that we need. Even though if you're challenging the very book itself, you better have evidence outside of the book for the historical claims. He's had none tonight. So, Ari, it is up for you to judge and for you to let us know in the chat, who do you think presented the best case? Do you think Islam has a leg to stand on? I don't think so. Now, we'll take the next question. It's a little bit inflammatory. I don't know if you want me to put it up. It's all up to you, Nadir.
What does it say?
Well, he believes that you blasphemed him, so he says that's what he says. He says you blasphemed, and he's allowed to blaspheme you back. He believes that that Muhammad.
I'll answer that. I can answer that.
Go ahead.
It all goes back to good and evil. You know, the one who brought so much suffering, your evil, wicked church fathers, they are the one with Apostle Paul and all those demon-possessed church fathers of yours. They're the one burning in hell. Okay? And I want to just read to you just how evil and wicked, and see who's burning in hell here. I'm going to quote from the jewishvirtualslibrary.org on Justin Martyr. So I'm just going to read this one sentence. Let's decide who's burning in hell. Justin's invective against the Jews and Judaism entered the mainstream of Christian thought and became a sinister influence, which contributed not a little towards the development of what is known as Christian anti-Semitism. So who's burning in hell? Who is the one who caused all the suffering in the world today? It is the demon-possessed prophet Apostle Paul and all of his henchmen and goons that you call the church fathers. And I'm ready to debate this anytime when the church father debate comes about.
And you won't survive that one either. Let's look at, there's going to be a distinction in it. There's going to be a difference. Rather than, notice how I have not once said anything nasty about Muhammad. I've never said Muhammad is burning in hell, which I firmly believe that he is, but I've never said that. I've never relied on nasty statements of all of his leaders throughout history and said they're all burning in hell. I didn't say that. I don't need to. All I have to do is come up here and annihilate his theology, and that would be good enough for me. That'd be good enough so people could see how Islam is false. But I'll show the flip side. He likes to point to these people being evil. Well, St. Paul teaches love and forgiveness and holiness. Romans 13:10, love is the fulfillment of the law. Ephesians 4:32, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another. If St. Paul were evil, well, this doesn't really fit with his teaching, does it? It doesn't fit with what Nadir is saying. But St. Paul had a radical personal sacrifice. He had no wealth. He gave it all up. No power, no status. In the grand scheme of things, he suffered imprisonment, beatings, rejection, and martyrdom. He had no earthly motive to deceive people, and he didn't deceive people. His conversion is explained by the truth, and the early fathers affirm Paul. That is why Nadir doesn't like them. The early fathers affirm Jesus as Almighty God. They affirm Mary as Mother of God, and these are an unbroken chain, a lineage that goes to the apostles, that goes to the head Christ. I can quote them. I can quote an unbroken line leading all the way up to Muhammad. For 600 years, Nadir can quote Muhammad. That's it. There's a stark contrast tonight. And you, the audience, if you are Muslim or if you're looking into Islam, you need to really, really consider after hearing this debate. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you think Nadir presented an even remotely coherent case? I didn't only present the Bible and the fathers. No, I also presented enemies. And those enemies obliterate any of the arguments he's made tonight of my arguments being circular. Nadir, can you show the scientific evidence for the Quran being revealed and the miracles of prophets? Don't be circular, he says. Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
Can you show the scientific evidence for the Quran being revealed and miracles of the prophet? Yeah, I mean, I can definitely show you many examples. I mean, one of the examples is, as I cited to you, that the Quran actually corrects the scientific errors of the Bible. And I'll give you one example here. You know, one of the greatest problems, one example which I'll give you, which will debunk also the false apostle Paul. You see, look at what Islam says about circumcision. Circumcision, you have to be circumcised inside Islam. But Paul did away with this obligation. But we now know from modern science that circumcision is very important to keep away these venereal diseases like AIDS. In fact, if you go to South Africa today, 1 out of every 4 Christians, or 1 out of every 5 Christians, actually is HIV positive. And now they have a voluntary circumcision program. But wait a second, that's what Islam has been saying all along. So the false apostle Paul, he gave everybody in South Africa AIDS, all those Christian. Why? Because he removed the obligation of circumcision, and that was a necessary protection to keep you away from these terrible STDs. And as a result, 1 out of every 4 are now HIV positive. So this is, and the church fathers promoted this great evil. So we saw the Holocaust, we saw the horrors of anti-Semitism, but not only that, but the New Testament gave all these people AIDS. Why? Because of that false prophet you follow, Paul, who ignorantly removed the protection from these venereal diseases. That's one scientific miracle. We got much more.
All right, great. Number one, I'm not aware of the Quran explicitly commanding circumcision, but okay, even if it does, with that in mind, there is no evidence. Number one, let's be very clear. In terms of circumcision, there is no evidence that not getting circumcised causes HIV. That's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. There's no study that would ever affirm that. If you can quote the study, I'd love to hear the study. And yes, the study better not come from Quran.com. No, for instance, it shouldn't come from. Obviously, that's ridiculous. He keeps quoting places that wouldn't even affirm his own Quranic beliefs. But he says that the Quran has corrected errors, scientific errors in the Bible. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. It makes a bunch of ludicrous errors. It doesn't correct anything scientifically. In fact, the Quran rips off from hilarious Gnostic stories. You got the talking baby in the cradle, ripped off from Gnosticism. You got clay birds breathing to life, ripped off from Gnosticism. You have a mountain hung above Israel. You have Solomon talking to ants and birds. There's a lot of silly stuff there. No, the Quran doesn't correct anything scientifically at all. The Quran collapses if we look at what it says scientifically. That's ridiculous. There is also, here's another problem. There is no Islamic scholar before the 20th century that claimed scientific miracles. I know when the idea began. I know when it began in the 70s. There are no early Muslim exegetes that read the Quran as science because it isn't. So Muslims like Nadir are using revisionism, silly revisionism. There are a lot of scientific errors in the Quran, a lot of them. It gets human embryology wrong. It gets it very wrong. And it also tells you that mountains prevent earthquakes. The sun sets in a muddy spring. There are 7 solid layers of heaven. Over and over, I can give you many other stars. The other ludicrous ones, stars are missiles used to shoot demons. Mm-hmm. This is outlandish. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. The sky is a dome that can fall. And I can go on and on. If we want to talk about hilarious stuff, we could talk about this. The Quran, well, this is ridiculous as well. Muslims claim a lot of stuff as science. Well, this is just ludicrous. There's so many errors that I've lost count of them.
Okay, can I accept your challenge? You wanted the scientific reference. I'll give it to you.
Well,
William.
I mean, you had your chance. You had the first response.
No, hold on a second. You're not allowing me to share my screen. You're not
Go
allowing
ahead.
me to give any
just give the answer, brother, and I'll give another one. I don't want to be here till 1 a.m.
I'm feeling this a bit unfair. You see, William.
Go ahead. I'm going to give you the last response here. Then I'll go to the next one.
No, William, like all these things about the Holocaust and things like that, I'm quoting references, and you're not allowing me to share my screen.
It's ridiculous.
So now you have the comfort to now deny all of what I'm saying, so I can't show anybody.
No, Nadir, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying it would take too much time.
My screen here.
Go ahead, Nadir. I'm going to allow you. Don't take more than 30 seconds. I gave you the first answer here, and I responded. Come on, Nadir.
Okay, I'm quoting from CDC right here. Okay, this is a CDC website. Oh, it says in 2007, voluntary medical male circumcision was endorsed by the WHO and the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS after it was found to be associated with approximately 60% reduction in the risk for female to male transmission of HIV. Okay, so yes, circumcision does prevent AIDS up to 60%, as well as other venereal diseases. So this shows that your prophet, which you are following, which is Paul, who claimed to be a disciple, he is a false prophet, and he got corrected by Prophet Muhammad. And because of your book,
I gave you 30 seconds.
These people AIDS.
I gave you 30 seconds there. That's hilarious that it gave people AIDS. Here's the problem, Nadir. Most of the world is not circumcised, and it's completely healthy. And you're taking the CDC document out of context. Most of the world is not circumcised and is fully healthy. If not circumcision were bad, then, well, Europe, South America, East Asia, they should have some pretty enormous health problems. They don't. And their general health, it's pretty good. It's equal or even better than those that are circumcised. That's a terrible argument. But yet again, that's ridiculous. We should stick to the topic being Mary. I am honoring that question, but that's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument that science proves Islam. You haven't given any examples tonight. James says, William, even if we assume the texts of the New Testament aren't divinely inspired, even though they are, wouldn't they at least be as reliable as the hadiths are to most Muslims? I don't know if that's for me or you. Wouldn't they? That's a question for you. Wouldn't they at least be as reliable as the hadiths are? No, that's your answer. Yes or no? Would it?
So no, absolutely not. All the New Testament documents, they are all forgeries. Okay, they're just written by anonymous people. We don't even know who they are, with bogus chains that you guys are creating. All of this is fabrications. All of this is written by frauds. So, and the reason why we see so much fraud in Christianity is because the true disciples of Jesus, they never were victorious over their enemies, where they took control of the state so that they can enforce their viewpoint, and preserve the message of Jesus. But that's not the case with Islam. The followers and disciples of Muhammad overcame their enemies and took control of the state. And when you take control of the state, you now have the ability, the power to now preserve and spread your message. So that's a big difference, and why we see Islam has been preserved and Christianity has been corrupted. It's because of their of the failure to basically conquer your enemies. That's what happened.
Yeah. So the problem is that the Quran actually affirms the Torah and the Gospel, and that's an issue that Nadir is never going to be able to deal with. So this idea of the Torah and the Gospel being corrupted, well, his very own Quran tells us that we can look to the Torah and the Gospel. We can actually look it, and we're told, "Let the people of the Gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein." Well, guess what? We've got the Torah and the Gospel. The ones that would have been circulating, the Bible that would have been circulating during the time of Muhammad, we've got that Bible. We have ancient manuscripts that line up with whatever would have been circulating at the time of Muhammad, and they affirm Catholicism. They affirm the thesis tonight that Mary is Mother of God. The very Bible that the Quran confirms affirms Mary as Mother of God. It affirms Galatians 4:4, made of a woman. Christ is made of a woman. Human nature for Mary. It confirms the Gospel of Luke, Mary is the mother of the Lord. It confirms Isaiah 7 and Matthew 1, that there is a virgin that will give birth to Emmanuel, and Emmanuel means God with us. The very Quran is filled with errors if it's pointing you to look to the Gospels. And the Gospels refute what he's been arguing all night tonight. And we know the Gospels that were around during the time of Muhammad. We know them, James. We still have them. We have manuscripts. The canon during the time of Muhammad would have been the exact canon we got today. 7th century canon, you know it, James, would be identical to the canon of the present time. And that canon, preserved through ancient manuscripts, confirms what we are saying and refutes his own religion. Imagine your own religion confirming a book that refutes it. Oreo, God bless you, William. How much do you... We'll get to that one. A deadlift, bet. I don't squat. Bench press 400 plus, guys. We'll talk about that later. James, Momo Muhammad is probably responsible for the Holocaust more than St. Justin. Islam is a mutated form of rabbinic Judaism and Christianity. Go ahead and respond to that.
Yeah. So, in terms of the verbal abuse, there's no need for that. Like I said, if there's any, you could go to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial.
You've abused the fathers all night.
Okay,
they don't like that.
Okay, you can go to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial. You can go to Simon Wiesenthal Center. If you show any Quran verses which the historians and experts say, look, this Quran verse has caused so much suffering for our people and brought in 2,000 years of suffering for our people, like they do with the Bible, then yes, I will leave Islam, because that means the Quran cannot be from God. Because a book of God is supposed to bring goodness, happiness, peace, and love into the world. It shouldn't bring misery and suffering into the world. And if it does, then it has been corrupted by Satan. Now, as I said, and William is just going to basically lie about this, every scholar, historian, and expert do agree that the verse 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 15 about the killing of God, that has caused so much suffering and hate into the world. It's called deicide, the killing of God. They all agree that is the root cause, one of the root causes of the Holocaust and 2,000 years of suffering. There are no historians or experts, which I know, who disagree on that. And this was an evil belief which was promoted by the church fathers. It was promoted by, as Justin Martyr, like which I told you. And like I said, chapter 5, verse 157 is all the evidence I need to show that Islam is from God, because it took the horrible stigma off of the Jews and basically kind of rescued them, from this evil suffering. And that's why Islam brings good into the world. It's Bible-based Christianity, which has brought horrible suffering into the world. Not only the AIDS virus, as we saw with the issue of circumcision, but also the misery of the Jewish people.
Yeah. So in terms of the gospel writers being anti-Semitic, let me give you a bunch of historians. Bart Ehrman doesn't believe they were anti-Semitic at all. And Bart Ehrman is a major liberal. N.T. Wright doesn't believe that. He's a major historian, major scholar. And I can give you more. I can give you many others, but those are just two, and that should suffice. These blanket statements that everyone is wild. These are wild blanket statements. I've given you people over and over, but I mean, if that is the best Nadir can do, make wild blanket statements, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we're not getting any good evidence here. We're not getting any. Nadir, which mortal in paganism gave birth to a god?
Mhm.
Who was the father of Isa?
Yeah. So you see, the premise of your argument is wrong. You see, and I've already refuted this. Well, first of all, I just want to make a claim. Yeah, I just want to correct you. Nobody's claiming Bible writers were anti-Semitic. That's not the issue here.
Church
Nobody's claiming
fathers
the
as well.
Bible
I include them
teaches
both.
hate.
I include them
That
both.
that encourages people to kill Jews. That nobody is
I
saying that.
include
That's
both.
all. The issue here is that it's made a statement which incited anger and hate in people.
And I've quoted
Okay,
scholars that disagree with you. So
there
just
are
answer the
okay.
question
You are
from James.
fabricating, William.
No,
You are
I'm not. I just
fabricating
quoted
this point.
scholars from you. I'm not.
Okay,
You can
in
contact
our
them
church
afterwards if you
fathers
want.
debate,
You
we
can
will
quote them
see.
after.
We
That's
will,
fine.
we will
Answer
come to a
James now. He's
conclusion on
asking
this.
you. He's asking you this. You're
Just
wrong. I've quoted
because-
multiple
okay,
scholars.
So the pagan concept is there, but just because you go through the different religions and you see some differences, in some of the details of the pagan concept, that doesn't prove anything. All these pagan religions are copying from one another, and they're all tweaking it so that to fit their theology. So nobody is saying that it's 100% copy job, but but the concept is there, and Christianity has no argument for why we see so much similarity between the pagan religions and Christianity and what they're presenting in terms of Son of God, Mary, Mother of God, giving birth to these gods, and the issue of divinity of Christ. That's all from idolatry and pagan religions, and I see no reason why not to just assume the obvious. You're saying, oh, but there's some slight differences here and there. Doesn't prove that. Doesn't prove anything.
Okay, let me go ahead and respond to that. Give me 1 second. I was just trying to grab a drink. Give me 1 second. Okay. Whew, that was a great question. I gotta give a tip of the hat to James. That's a great question. Yeah, that's a good point. There is nothing, and Nadir has nothing. He has absolutely nothing, because Christianity was born out of Judaism, not paganism. Jesus, the apostles, and the earliest Christians, they were devout Jews, and very clearly the prophecies were being fulfilled. All the core Christian doctrines come directly from Jewish revelation: the one God, creation ex nihilo, covenant, sacrifice, priesthood. Sacrifice, a term that Nadir and Muhammad had no idea what it meant. Priesthood, another term that Muhammad was confused about. Messiah, resurrection. All of this was prophesied. He doesn't come from paganism. That's why he can't give you any examples. He says, well, you got to tell me why it's so similar. Well, it's so similar because many of these are copycats, and they ripped off of Christianity. I challenged Dr. Price during our debate on that very topic as to why our earliest manuscripts are so late, so much later after Christianity. Do we have the idea of a dying and a rising Messiah in paganism? That none of the early examples have that as evidence. None of them. They post-dated, and I've got the manuscript history there. Justin Martyr even accuses them of copying, of ripping off. The early accounts don't have anything resembling Christianity. So, no, this doesn't come from paganism, and you're 100% right, James. And this is an area where Nadir did very poorly tonight, claiming that we ripped off from paganism without any evidence, claiming that we worship Mary without any evidence. I said, okay, what does the Bible tell you? How is worship defined? Who cares? Okay, who for the first thousands of years defined worship in the way that you believe it is? Well, who cares? Well, the Quran says this. There you go. You're sola Quran. You can't provide any evidence out of what you think the Quran says. And well, there you see your argument miserably fall apart. Miserably. Why would a pagan stop people from fabricating gospels? And of course, a Jew would accuse Christians. Why would they not twist history against us?
No, the passage, from again Celsus, he was, and it's not just him, but there's many references. He did where he accused the Christians of fabricating gospels. So and this was and this wasn't just the heretics who were doing it. No, even the followers of Paul were doing it. Again, the reference which I gave you, they caught one of them who were fabricating these gospels, and they said, "Why'd you do it?" He said, "I did it for the love of Paul." Okay, that's why he fabricated these books. But so the problem here is, Christians have no evidence to show that what they have is not one of those fabrications. They have no evidence to show that their church fathers were not the frauds, which existed in that time. They just engage in circular reasoning. How do you know this Polycarp dude is telling the truth? Well, because the other church fathers back him up. So it's just basically comes down to the church is 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 um is the only authority that they back up these people with. So it's all circular reasoning. It's nonsense, is what it is. And so what it comes down to is why you guys believe in all this stuff is because you're blindly following the affirmations, assertions, and faith proclamations of these kooks and quacks of the Roman Empire, who gave you people AIDS, who ushered in this era of persecution against the Jewish people, who brought so much wickedness and evil in the world. And that's all going to be laid out in our church father debate. Okay. And so Islam came and relieving you from this evil. It removes the evil New Testament teachings, which in chapter 4, verse 457. That's why I follow it. Now I will renew my challenge. If you can show me in the Quran anywhere where it causes needless pain and suffering, then I will leave Islam. A
So
book of God should not do that.
what Celsus
Okay.
actually does is accuse the Christians of altering Old Testament texts. He didn't give a hoot for the Gospels. So the claim that he's actually accusing them of creating new Gospels is ridiculous. Celsus is accusing them of editing and manipulating writings that were twisting Jewish scriptures. The problem is this: when he's complaining about corruption, he is saying that fables have been inserted. The problem is we have manuscripts that predate Celsus by a lot. And I mean by a lot. There is no evidence of anything being edited or altered. And there's that other problem that Nadir's own holy book, so-called holy book, says you can look to the Torah and the Gospels. They're reliable. So the idea of corruption goes out the window when his own Quran boneheadedly affirms that you can look to the Gospel and the Torah. So this corruption, if it's true, well, Muhammad wasn't very smart, saying you can look to the Gospel and the Torah. But the problem is, Celsus, there are manuscripts. There is what we have that we know is a critical edition of the Septuagint that far predates Origen. And we can tell from the Septuagint there are no alterations. There are no inserted prophecies. Isaiah 7, for instance, which was front and center today, Isaiah 7 remains a virgin giving birth to Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God with us. So again, and the other idea that he keeps quoting, which is hilarious, I'd love to get a first-hand source if he has one. The idea that somebody says they were fabricating gospels and they did it for Paul. I'd love to get that source. It's baloney. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, guys. It's baloney. The idea that somebody says that and they said, well, I did it for Paul, it's baloney. You're going to get, he may give you a response. It's going to be one of the silliest things you're ever going to hear in your life. And if you are sitting down, you're probably going to collapse in laughter. I'm going to dare say you're probably collapse in laughter. James says the Gospels say it's the Romans who mock Jesus as the King of the Jews. The Jews never did. All they did was accuse him of claiming to be the Messiah. I think he was just saying something more than anything else there. Okay. Nadir, okay. How do you know people are in hell? Are you Allah? James wants to know.
Well, first of all, I just want to, accept your challenge. I'll give you my reference for
Here.
the reference, which you were challenging me about where people were fabricating for the love of Paul.
No, he says I did it for Paul. He said I did it for Paul. He fabricated gospels.
Paul. When they caught him, they asked.
I wrote it down. He said, "Okay, let me hear it. Let me hear it."
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We'll wait for the debate on church fathers. I'll get that too. But I do get
there is no quote. Doesn't exist.
Okay, let me. Okay, well, yeah, no problem. If this does not
baloney.
Exist, I will definitely, apologize for you. But I'll get that.
I hope you come back and down here below you put an apology for everyone, because that is a lie. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, for the love of Paul. Okay, no problem.
That's ridiculous.
I do. Can I share my screen here, please?
He wants to know how you know people are in hell. Just give him an answer.
Yeah, because this is what God has revealed to us in the Holy Quran, which tells us, what is the path to salvation. Now, the Quran does state that the people who believe that Jesus is God, they will not go to heaven. Okay, they will burn in hell for the rest of eternity. That is why I am trying to present evidences and proofs for the Christian. Now, I didn't get a chance to answer all of William's points, like the Quran confirming the Bible, it's all accurate. I don't, I'm not, I'm not a miracle worker. I can't answer all these points, but please hold me accountable for it, and I'll definitely get that for you. But
Okay.
so that's how we
I'm
know.
gonna hold you to
Okay.
that. I am gonna hold you to
Okay.
that. And we can definitely dialogue about that again, but I am definitely gonna hold you to that. Okay?
Okay. Sure. Sure.
Okay, let's continue. Uh Now where is it? Dear. Okay, yeah, well, very clearly, I this to answer you very clearly, James. Yeah, no, he very clearly is not God. How would he know that? He's relying on his own fallible knowledge in his own Quran, which is full of errors. I don't have much more to add to that. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, we can talk about all about Hub says I arrived late. Can you share a bit about what Catholicism and Islam agree about on Mary? I mean, I can tell you what I think, and Nadir can add anything else. I think that we agree that Mary is a highly revered, holy woman. As far as I know, I believe that Nadir can also confirm that Mary is perpetual virgin and a very important woman as well. Nadir can confirm whatever else he believes. Go ahead, Nadir.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
What do you believe that Catholicism and Islam agree upon in terms of
Oh.
Mary?
So we do agree that Jesus was the Messiah. We do agree that Mary gave birth to Jesus miraculously, meaning there was no male intervention for the birth of Jesus. How it was done is by God saying, "Be," and it is, and that's how Jesus was born. We believe Jesus did the mighty miracles by the very power of God. So many of the miracles which even the Christians believe, we as Muslims believe, we are the only two religions which make it an article of faith to believe in Jesus.
Okay. Dun64 says the Jewish virtual library says Islam is false. Should we believe that too? Ignore the last part, guys. Dun64 is solid, guys. Don't put him on mute. He's great. He's solid. Jewish virtual library says Islam is false. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I don't think that is a reference from the Jewish Virtual Library, but
I imagine
it
it would believe it's false
yeah.
if it's Jewish. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't
going to
think that
believe Islam is
that's
real.
a it's a we the issue about Justin Martyr. Okay, that's found inside many about his anti-Semitism and being the father of anti-Semitism. That's found in many historical references. There is no dispute about that. I think William may not be aware of it, that he is the one who injected this idea about deicide coming from the New Testament into Christendom, which then later led to the Holocaust, as we saw inside the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in his video, the roots of the Nazi Holocaust. You know, that is something which there are no academics or scholars who disagree on that. They all agree upon that. And when we get to the Church Fathers debate, we will revisit that issue, and I'll present. And he will when he said, "Oh, but there's scholars who actually do deny that." That's not true. Okay, everybody accepts that. Nobody's claiming that the Bible is teaching to go out and kill Jews, but what the scholars and academics said, there were verses in there which incited anger, animosity, hatred against the Jewish people, and that's found inside First Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 15, about the killing of Jesus. So it's evil, wicked teachings, which clearly show Christianity cannot be true, because a book of God should bring love, peace, happiness into the world. All right, not misery and suffering, like the New
So
Testament did.
I mentioned the New Testament, by the way, that Islam confirms and affirms. The New Testament that Islam, that his own holy book points to as a book that is reliable and that the people should turn to for reliable information. Yeah, so much for Muhammad being reliable then. Well, he mentions Justin Martyr. He says, everyone. Well, I gave him multiple scholars, but yeah, I guess the Reverend Dr. Booker isn't good enough. Let's take it a little bit further. We're looking at a text that I've got open. In fact, let me open this text for the audience here. I again, my StreamYard unfortunately gives me all kinds of errors when I attempt to open um, a page and share it. So I'm just going to screenshot this and get this. This is going to end it all pretty in a miserable way for Nadir. Almost feel bad for Nadir. But I did warn him. I did warn him. He was out of his element when it came to the early church fathers. Justin Martyr, he's wrong on whatever, claiming that everybody says these things about Justin Martyr. He's very wrong. And indeed, what I've got open here in front of me is a critical edition of Justin Martyr. Now, I know Nadir probably doesn't know what a critical edition is, but it's a critical edition of Justin Martyr's writings. And in the critical edition of Justin Martyr's writings, no, it doesn't make those claims. And it is a massive critical edition on all of his writings and all of his works. And no, it doesn't make the claim that Nadir is making. In fact, I just plugged in tons of different words to search that whole critical edition. No, it doesn't make the claims that he says. That's a critical edition of Justin Martyr's works in Greek. It doesn't get any higher than that. The scholarship doesn't get any higher than that on Justin the Martyr. On St. Justin the Martyr, it doesn't get any higher than that. So let Nadir continue. Let Nadir continue bringing up all kinds of people. Oh, I got these people on my side. I got these people on my side. Good for you. Not everybody agrees with you. And I've refuted the claims that you've been making against Christianity all night. I've been refuting them all night. And your claims on Justin Martyr are ludicrous. And Dun64 is right. The Jewish virtual library would definitely think that Islam is also false. Why would you point to something that also shows your religion to be erroneous in their eyes? But then again, that is the wacky world of what we've been hearing about from Nadir all night. AB would like to know, how did Paul foster the spread of HIV while concurrently rebuking lust?
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem with, with this, how Paul spread AIDS into the world while rebuking lust, is that he removed the protection from these. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired here. He removed the protection.
We'll take two more and
AIDS.
then we'll wrap it up after that. Okay?
Yeah, he removed the protection from AIDS here. So the question, the dilemma which the Christians have to grapple with is, okay, Muhammad comes 600 years later, and he now reimposes the obligation of circumcision, thus, offering the protection. So how do you explain a false prophet, basically correcting the so-called true prophet of God, which, if we are to assume that's Paul, I mean, how do you explain that? So we asked that question to Chat GPT. Okay, make your analysis of this, because it really gives you the logic breakdown. And they said, no, that's not possible. The only sensible explanation for this, and we'll get to this inside the church father debate, is that it is Paul which is the false prophet, and Muhammad is the true prophet of God. He said that's really just the only, the only sensible explanation based on this evidence here.
Let's take
a false, yeah.
Let's take three more.
If I can share my screen, I can even show you.
Well, let's do it another time, because
last
time
we'll get to that debate, and
we'll do it. We'll do it then, because otherwise let's take three more. Let's take three more. We'll take. Well, let me answer that one. Let me answer first off. AB, phenomenal points there. Yeah, it's a historically false claim. It's ridiculous. It's also medically ignorant. Now, HIV didn't even exist in Paul's world. It emerged in the 20th century. It's ridiculous. And it emerged from a mutation in Africa. And it was unknown, I believe, until the 80s or 70s. I don't remember. Paul lived in 80, 30 to 70 or 60, 68 or whatever. The idea that his teachings influenced HIV is scientifically absurd. As absurd as the Quran correcting biblical errors and the Quran being scientifically verifiable, it's ridiculous. Circumcision has nothing to do with HIV in St. Paul's context. It spreads overwhelmingly from sexual contact with an infected person, or needles or blood contact, or many other ways. But to then claim that he is the cause of it, he preached against sexual immorality. And that is the number one factor in reducing STDs. He repeatedly condemns sexual sin, fornication, adultery. He repeatedly says, flee from sexual immorality. And here's the other thing. St. Paul didn't abolish circumcision. He made it optional. Jews may continue circumcision, but Gentiles are not required to adopt that ceremonial law. We're not under the old law anymore. We're now under the law of faith, under the law of Christ, which, funny enough, the Quran confirms the gospel message. That's another issue that wasn't dealt with all day long. That's the Islamic dilemma that cannot be dealt with. He'd like to know if I don't know if you want to answer that. I don't know if that's. Do you believe Aisha consented to marriage?
Well, that's way off topic.
Okay, let's move. No, 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 let's
Yeah,
move to another one. No, no,
yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. Let's move to another one. Let's take two more. Can you give me the scientific evidence for drinking camel urine and its health benefits, or the cure for diseases on
Mhm.
flies' wings?
It's way off topic. Let's
Okay,
stay on topic. Yeah.
okay. Cathal and Felix, thank you for your super chats. If Maryam is mother of the divine word of Allah, doesn't that make her mother of God?
No.
I mean, yeah, it does, but he doesn't believe that. But go ahead, give your answer. We'll take after that. We'll take two more.
If Maryam is the mother of the divine word, she is not the mother of the divine word of Allah. She is the mother of a human being, a prophet of God who is, and so what Islam did, you see, if you understand, it stripped away all those pagan attributes given to Jesus about that he is God, he's son of God. And to correct William, he said, "Oh, well, all the pagan similarities came after the New Testament." That's not correct. Son of God existed before the New Testament. Jesus being divine existed before the New Testament as well. And so Islam stripped away every one of these pagan attributes and made Jesus resemble like a Israelite prophet is supposed to look like. Okay, and that's the and so we still haven't heard any real good explanation why we just shouldn't assume the obvious that this is clearly pagan borrowing. And if you say these things all came after Jesus, no, it's not true. All right, those are all the pagan attributes which I cited all existed before Christ.
Yeah, original Christian, you're 100% right. These pagan attributes came later. There's no evidence. In fact, he's provided no evidence that they came before. And in fact, I'm going to refute even his argument on Son of God, which is thoroughly Jewish and biblical. Yet again, he's wrong because he hasn't done this research. He will spew this nonsense, but he'll give you no evidence. I will tell you, and I will give you the receipts. Son of God is biblical long before the New Testament Christian text. The Hebrew scriptures explicitly refer to it, Son of God. It is used of Israel. Israel is my firstborn son, Exodus 4:22. It's used of the Davidic king. You are my son, today I have begotten you. It's used even of angels, but it's also used, here is the important thing, when the sons of God shouted for joy, for angels. That's pre-Christian, pre-Hellenistic, not derived from paganism. So yet again, Nadir is wrong. And I just wish Nadir would prop up ChatGPT to help him out. He's needed help all night. Next time, maybe we'll get a partner for him to help him out. At the Qumranic Dead Sea Scrolls, as Dr. Bergsma has also shown, even there they already included Son of God in the text. This is the Quranic Dead Sea Scrolls. Before Jesus, they're using this term. So the idea that this comes from paganism is downright erroneous. But I wouldn't expect Nadir to know because he hasn't done research on this. But I hope that he does do research on this. Yes, I do hope so. I want to give a shout out to Joey. God bless you, Joey. Thank you for the support, my friend. James doesn't think he answered any of his questions. So he says, Nadir didn't answer any of them. Why would a pagan care about atheistic texts? Nadir keeps running to other reasons other than answering me. Can you give him an answer, Nadir?
Why would a pagan care about atheistic texts? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Nadir keeps running. I guess the question just went away from me.
Oh, go ahead.
Uh,
There you go.
Nadir keeps running to other reasons other than answering me. I don't understand the question. Why would a pagan care about atheistic texts? I don't. I guess I'm not. I'm not sure what he means by that. But one thing I did quote the New World Encyclopedia, where it said the phrase "Son of God" was what came from the pantheons like Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, Hermes, Ares. Son of God pre-existed the New Testament. It also is found in the Hindu religion as well. And I shared my screen and gave you the New World Encyclopedia. So no, all these pagan attributes did not come after the New Testament. Okay, Hinduism, they also believe in God in human form. Hinduism predates Christianity. It's the oldest religion, as a matter of fact, in the world where they believe God coming in the form of a human being. All right. So, and I can give you, and the reference for that is a Vedanta Society. Inside their article, Avatar, God in Human Form. I'm reading it from there. So, yes, it is pre exists Christianity. William, you're not accurate in what you're saying.
Yeah, yet again, Nadir is incorrect. He was referring to the term son of God, claiming to be pagan, and I refuted that it was pagan. It's not pagan. But he's also wrong about Hinduism. It does not teach sons of God in the biblical sense. He's wrong yet again. In Hinduism, and I know because I've heard this argument even from Dr. Price, Hinduism, beings are called avatars, as he mentioned, avataras, or the children of the deities are created. They're finite beings. They're not eternal. They do not use this term even remotely similar, not even remotely similar. So yet again, he's wrong. In Hinduism, even divine beings or avatars are not equal in essence with the Brahman, the ultimate reality for them. And they are subject to, as Nadir should know, to karma and to rebirth and many other things that I don't know off the top of my head. So no, there's no similarity in Hinduism either. He's wrong, yet again, wrong on that point too. All About Hug says, Mary's consent was metaphysically necessary for the incarnation in Catholicism. How does Islam understand the metaphysical role of consent in divine acts? I am Muslim, but not educated on this. Thank you. There you go. You got somebody who's going to hear this whole debate.
Yeah.
You bet.
I'll give you
Give
$10.
your best answer. Give your best answer.
Okay, Mary's consent was a metaphysical necessary. I guess I really don't understand the question. How does Islam understand the metaphysical role of consent in divine acts? So I think this is talking about the mythology of Christianity, where they believe that Mary gave birth to a god. No, that's none of these things exist. I guess maybe I'm not really understanding
Well,
the
it's Muslim.
question here. But
Well,
I think
it's
to
a Muslim,
wrap it up,
remember.
yeah, and I'm sorry. Maybe maybe I'm slow. That's perfectly fine. But
And we've been going
I
for a long
think
time. It's okay.
the issue which I've pointed out. Well, the pagan borrowing now you accept. Okay, it did pre-existed before Christianity, but there's differences. Our avatar, God coming in the form of human man. There's these differences in there. Well, that doesn't prove that this is not a copy job. Of course, you could copy and then just tweak it a little bit, make it fit your own theology. Why can't that happen? That's the question you are supposed to answer tonight. Now, for sure, the avatar in Christianity is a little bit different from the avatar in Hinduism, God coming in the human form. The son of God, Apollo, Zeus, all these son of gods, sure, they're all little differences, but the concept is basically there. And saying, okay, well, there are some differences there, and we have a very different view of our son of God versus your son of God. That doesn't prove that one is not being copied, at least the core basis template is not being copied from another religion. That's no proof at all. So we are left with just, the common sense here is that, yeah, one is copying from the other. And to see Christianity as as being influenced by the pagan religions, by the kooks and quack church fathers, is really the best explanation which we have on the table today, which eventually gave us AIDS.
Yeah, the interesting thing is the idea of there being dying and rising gods, any kind of paganism that was copied. Well, again, we should have had some kind of evidence instead of just being told. We should have had something. We've got nothing. We've gotten absolutely nothing. We've been told all night, but if you look at the actual pagans, there is very little in common. And I'm going to reference early pagan writings. Post-pagan writings far post-date the New Testament, where there are so-called dying and rising messiahs. Yet again, Nadir will tell you, well, this and that, but he'll provide nothing. I am the one here all night providing the receipts. When I told Nadir, give me the reference of somebody saying, I copied Gospels for the love of Paul. Well, I don't have it. I'll give it to you later. I am giving you receipts. Nadir is just spouting off nonsense. If you look at Adonis, he was born from a mercury, didn't even get crucified, didn't even resurrect. And I'm talking about the top pagan deities. Attis wasn't even virgin born. His mother conceived by a fruit. A fruit. Attis was castrated, wasn't even crucified. Yet again, no resurrection. Baal wasn't even crucified, didn't even resurrect. Dionysius was not even virgin born, wasn't even crucified. He was ripped to pieces and ripped apart by Titans. To compare Christ to any of these is silly. As silly as the whole thesis of Nadir's throughout the whole debate. Hermes, no crucifixion. No resurrection in Hermes either. What about Krishna? There's no crucifixion. Krishna was the 8th born son as well. How ridiculous is that? Look at all these parallels the Christians ripped off from the pagans. Where? I have the receipts and the documents. There's nothing there. There's also no resurrection account. What about Mithras? Wasn't even virgin born. Mithras was born from a rock. Yes, a rock. There is no crucifixion or resurrection. Orpheus, no crucifixion, no resurrection. And you're telling me Christianity ripped off from these pagan deities? Give me a break. I have the evidence. I have the manuscript history. I've done the homework. Nadir, all he's done is just spouted off nonsense. You are right all about Hubs. You need to reconsider being in Islam. Because as you saw tonight, there's no evidence for it. You're right, Mary's consent was metaphysical and necessary. Because the incarnation is a personal union. God the Son assumes a human nature into his person. It's not merely a biological act. It is a metaphysical event. You're 100% right. And God desires free cooperation. The fathers confirm that. Islam denies that God truly became man. Denies that. Got it completely wrong. And it reduces the fiat, it reduces the conception to a fiat of Allah without Mary's metaphysical cooperation. And that is very problematic. We'll take this one as the final one. It's a great one.
By the way, I found my reference for the love of Paul.
Let me hear it.
Okay, can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. It's actually found in Dr. Bart Ehrman's book.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where
what's the actual source? What's the actual source?
It's in the book Lost Christianities. Okay, and I actually have the book on my shelf.
We want the actual source.
Okay. Well, okay, it's from Dr. Bart Ehrman's book, is what I'm quoting here. Okay, now
we want the first-hand source, not Dr. Bart Ehrman. We want the first-hand source, and AI is not going to help you. Let's put it full on the screen there. No, you think AI is going to help you there?
Okay, look, the AI have a look at what they say here. The text.
I don't agree.
Okay,
I don't agree.
The text describes the by the way, you can see my screen. The text describes the phenomena.
Look at what you put in the chat. For the love of Paul, you can't find the quote. Of course, AI is going to come out to what you suggested it should put out. Where's the actual quote?
Okay.
Do you have the quote?
Okay, it's found inside Dr. Bart.
Do you have the quote?
I don't. I have.
Thank you. It's not from a church father. That quote does not exist from a father.
Allow me to speak, okay, rather than you constantly interrupting.
Go ahead.
Me here, okay.
Go ahead.
This is coming from the book Lost Christianities by Dr. Bart Ehrman, in which he basically cited this passage, this text over here, where it says, in the case a forger created the text for the love of Paul, believing their motives were pure and intended to celebrate the apostle.
So an anonymous forger, and you don't even have the quote. Yet it's from an anonymous forger, not from a church father, and you don't even have the quote to present to us.
The point here is that if you look at the historical, this church father,
but yet you don't have. There's no church father. You don't have any quote.
Okay. The problem here is that we now know yes, people were engaging.
No, we don't know because you don't have a quote. Okay. You don't have anything, Nadir.
Okay.
You have nothing. We don't know. The audience are still waiting for the quote. Not for AI trying to save you. I want a quote. That's how debates are done, Nadir.
Okay.
Nadir, if you make a statement, debates are done that way.
Okay,
you provide quotes,
Nadir. This was not supposed to be a debate on church fathers.
Oh, but you're the one that brought that up to use. I didn't bring that up.
Okay.
You're the one that brought that up.
Okay, I tell you what. Will you accept if I show you? I have the book on my shelf here of Dr. Bart Ehrman's book, The Lost Christianity, that I can show you in that book where he cites this as a reference.
It's not a church father. I will not, because it's not from a church father.
Okay,
but I guarantee you, Lost Christianities. Lost Christianities.
I didn't make it up, William.
You do not have the quote, so you do not have any evidence.
What are you asking for?
Here's the other thing. Here's your other problem. Here's your other problem. Lost Christianities, that is in reference to heterodox groups. Those are not church fathers. None of them are church fathers.
But
Not a
your
one of them.
church fathers are a
No,
group
you
of
said church fathers.
heretics.
Those aren't church fathers, buddy.
Okay.
You said church fathers, Nadir. None of those are
Okay.
church fathers.
Okay. Well,
So
no, hold on a
you
second.
provided
They're
nothing.
the followers of Paul. They are the people who are.
No, these are not the
following
followers of Paul. You are incorrect.
Paul. He
These
said,
are
"I
not
did
the
it
followers
for
of
the
Paul."
love of Paul. That's why I fabricated these documents. So yes, they're tied to the church fathers because they're all the followers of that prophet that you're
Look at what
following.
look at what you just did. I just pulled up the book, and you're about to get annihilated. I just pulled up the book, and
Mhm.
it comes from a heretical group that Tertullian was condemning. Tertullian condemned this Christian forger. It was not a church father.
You're blindly
So
following
that
church
was
fathers
no.
then.
I have the book open now. I own the
Okay.
book.
So
I have
the,
it.
the reference is correct,
So
like I stated.
you
right?
no, sir. It was not from a church father. You told the audience that a church father said this, and they said they were forging for the love of Paul. Tertullian condemns these heretics that were doing that. He's condemning them.
Okay,
They were
yes.
fabricating tales, and he condemns them. This is not a church
Well,
father.
okay,
So
okay.
you just buried yourself.
Okay, hold on
You
a
just
second.
proved my position. Because if a church father is condemning
Wait a
them,
second.
that's not a church father. And
Okay.
Tertullian was a church writer.
Okay. So
He
but
later
they are
fell
the
away.
followers. Okay,
No,
what
sir.
you define
They
as a
were not
church
from the
father.
band. No,
Hold
they
on
were
a
not
second.
from the band
Okay,
of Paul.
Are you gonna
You're
let me
wrong.
talk? Are you gonna let me talk, or
You're
so I
wrong,
can
Nadir.
respond?
Go ahead. We have one last question. Then I got to
Okay.
go. Come on,
So
Nadir.
you see, first of all, you said that no, you just made up that reference. I'm showing you that the followers
I
of
had to
Paul
find it
themselves.
for you.
Okay, you have to let me. You have
Go
to
ahead.
let me
Go
talk.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I wasn't very fast with all the references, but pretty much what I'm saying is right. Look, the people
Not
who
at
followed
all.
this prophet,
Not
okay,
at all.
that you're following, and it's not just Celsius also accused Christians of fabricating, and what Celsius actually accused the Christians of doing.
Answer the
That
question
hold on a
about this,
second,
though.
both
Answer the question
wh-
about
my,
this.
my point, which I was trying to make, is we know that people were fabricating gospels, people were fabricating scriptures back then, and so the question really the burden of proof is now really upon you guys to show that what you have today is not one of those pious frauds and fabrications. Now, just quoting, well, the church fathers we follow,
You
and the
got it wrong.
church
You're wrong, Nadir.
fathers say it, so I follow
Nadir,
the
you're
church
wrong. This is not a church
fathers.
father, Nadir.
That's all Christianity is
Nadir,
following
you just
hold on a
proved
second,
you just
following
proved
the
no, because
affirmations
you
of
went
these
off.
ignorant
You went on
people.
another tangent, Nadir.
Okay.
You are wrong. Because you said there was a
Okay.
father that said he forged for the love of Paul. You were wrong.
He is a
And I
well,
proved
I
you were
consider
wrong.
him one of these kooks and quack church fathers. Okay.
So what's the
because
name of the person that forged? What's his name?
we don't know who this guy is.
So you have
but
no
he was
idea,
caught
but we know
doing
he
it.
was a heterodox figure. And even Bart Ehrman notes that
Wait.
he was
Okay.
heterodox.
Okay. Wait a
Even
second,
Bart
there is
Ehrman
no
knows
such
he
thing.
was
Hold on a second.
heterodox.
Everybody here is heterodox. That's what you're not understanding. You're
No,
trying to
very
say
clearly, if
my
Tertullian is
church
condemning them,
guys are the
if
right guys
Tertullian
and
was
everybody else is
condemning them,
wrong.
if
Okay.
Tertullian was condemning them,
Okay, it's all
clearly
circular.
they are not
Okay,
orthodox.
your
He was
circular reasoning
condemned by
is
Tertullian.
exposed.
And funny
Okay.
enough, I found the quote for you.
Thank you.
And there's and
You
it,
should have
and
did
guess
it
what?
earlier.
There's not even a first. No, well, I did all the work for you tonight. I did all the work for you tonight, exposing Islam. The fact of the matter is, number one, it's not a church father. Number two, it's from a heretical group that clearly not even Muhammad believed
Okay.
that group to be part of the faith. If Muhammad is telling you we got the
Really?
Gospels and the Torah to
Do
look
you-
to,
do you not
well, not even
understand?
Muhammad believes that
You-
this
okay,
is part of the
hold on a
original
second. You
faith.
keep saying they're
Not even the
heretical.
early
No,
enemies
you
of the
guys
faith
are
either,
heretical.
Muhammad.
Stop with this.
No,
Okay, well, they're
no,
heretical.
I'm sorry, Nadir.
You
He's
guys are
heretical.
the heretics here.
He's
okay?
heretical because he was condemned. His
Okay,
group
you
were
are
condemned in the
just
Bible.
making
Nadir,
faith proclamations
his
again.
group, if his group
Okay.
are condemned in the Bible, Nadir, if
Affirmations.
his group are condemned
Yeah.
in the Bible, that your own false prophet affirms. His group are condemned in the Bible, that your own false prophet confirms. I mean,
Yeah.
even Muhammad's on my side, not yours.
Oh, there's you're just
go to this final
blindly
question.
following your church.
Sure, yet I'm the one
church
that had.
fathers again.
I've the one that had. I've had receipts all night.
Yeah. Okay.
Both provide strong evidence that your Mary is the true Mary. Also, Nadir, stay on topic because he didn't answer the first time.
No, I did answer it, and I
Go ahead and answer for her. Go ahead.
again. Like I said, the why I believe in the Mary of the Quran, the Mary of
I'm going to give you 2 minutes uninterrupted. Go ahead. I'm going to put
Yeah.
the timer.
why I believe in the Mary, really, it comes back to good and evil. You see, when you believe in the Mary of the Bible, that's a Mary which is being presented to you by church fathers. These church fathers introduced AIDS into the world by removing the obligation of circumcision. These church fathers has brought death, suffering, and misery for 2,000 years. I cited, um, Justin Martyr, you know, as being the culprit, and this is all historians agree on this. But look at the Quran. The Quran, chapter 4 verse 157, corrects and does away with this evil verse of your book. And it says they did not kill Jesus, or referring to the Jews, nor crucify him. And thus Islam removes this horrible stigma. I want you to look at this evidence. One book brings goodness into the world, at least for the Jewish people, we can say. There's no doubt about that. And one book brings evil, misery, and suffering. So that's why you should believe in the Mary of Islam and reject the Mary of the New Testament, because of the misery and suffering those church fathers caused this world.
All right. You had 30 seconds. You don't want to use the last 30 seconds?
No, I think it's about good and evil, picking good over
All right.
evil.
Well, I'm going to use the final 2 seconds. I'll use it. And Ari, I promise you, I will answer what you actually asked. So let me two minutes. My most powerful argument: only the Catholic Mary fulfills the God-designed Old Testament prophecies, and we have many of them. Genesis 3:15, the woman at enmity with the serpent, but the Messiah as well that will crush the head of the serpent. That is fulfilled in Holy Mary, the new Eve. And that very clearly is prophesied of and fulfilled in the New Testament. Perhaps one of the most important ones, Ari, Isaiah 7:14. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. Fulfilled in Mary, conceiving virginally, bearing God, not merely a prophet. Islam denies this. Micah 5:2-3, the mother who brings forth the eternal ruler. Islam denies that. Mary is the Ark of the New Covenant. Islam denies that. And I can go on and on and on. The Mary of the Bible is the Mary of history, not the Mary you find in Islam, who you've got all these ridiculous errors, wrong figures that she's connected to, chronological errors and theological errors. Funny enough, the Quran actually affirms that we can look to the gospel, and the gospel proves Islam is wrong. It proves it's wrong. But the idea that he keeps saying that the Quran corrected the idea the Jews killed Jesus, well, the Quran gets the idea that Christ was crucified wrong. It gets it wrong. So it makes a historical blunder there, because not only does the Bible confirm Christ died and was crucified, extra biblical sources confirm it, like Tacitus. Many others, I can give you many others, Pliny, Tacitus, Suetonius, Josephus, all of them affirm and confirm this, yet again proving Islam is false and the Catholic Mary is the true Mary, and the Mary of Islam is false. I had about 10 seconds, but I want to leave it there. Otherwise, we'll be here till like 1 a.m. Nadir, I appreciated this dialogue.
Thanks.
You got to get in touch with me. I do want a dialogue. I do want to talk about
Church
the early fathers.
now.
Let's do it. Reach out to me. Let's do it.
All right.
But I do have to go, my friend. I'm going to...
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great talking to you. I'll be in touch, all right?
All right.
All right, audience. Guys, I want to tell you all thank you so much. You guys are phenomenal. I do want to give a shout out to all. Joey, you're phenomenal. All you guys that send super chats. Forgive me if I wasn't able to get to all of them. I think I got to all. Let me read the final few, guys. Forgive me if I wasn't able to get to all. James says, I think I read that one. Yeah, I read that one. And I put that one on the screen. Like I said, Nadir, read Tertullian before citing him. James says, why is the fathers causing AIDS? Not off topic, but the scientific evidence of Islam's holy book is... Yeah, I mean, no doubt, James. I don't want to be answering any more questions now that he's gone. But I want to tell you guys, you all are phenomenal. Did you all enjoy the debate? If anyone sends another super chat, I'll just put it on the screen. No more questions, so I want to be fair. I don't want to answer any as Nadir is gone. Did you all enjoy it? Did you love it? Now I want you all to realize if you're stuck in Islam or you're studying Catholicism, you tell me what you think, what you thought of that debate. You tell me what you thought of the debate. You tell me. Learn the argument. Brother, I don't know. I don't know if you want me to ban you, Diego. I don't know if you need to be banned, Diego. I know what they are. That wasn't the topic. But you know what, Diego? I'll do you a favor and I'll ban you, Diego, because you think that I need to learn the arguments. I know why Islam is evil. That wasn't the topic. But since you want to make a comment like that, I'll put you in timeout, brother. We'll put you in timeout for a full 24 hours since you want to make comments like that. I know about Islam. What we're doing is we're talking about the Mary of Islam, not why Islam is evil. So don't come up here making those comments, man. I love you, Ori. I love all you guys. You guys are incredible. All About Hub says, if I'm honest, some of the questions felt like they weren't answered directly or became off topic quickly. Go and listen to the full debate. Please go listen to the full debate. Hear it all, and then you let me know down below who you think did the best. You let me know. God bless you, Lino Molina. What is that new icon at the back? I flew out to Pints with Aquinas, man. I flew out to Pints with Aquinas, and my man, the GOAT, Matt Fradd, gave me. He gifted me it. Let me show you, Lino Molina. I love you, Lino. You showed me it. Look. He gifted me this. Look at this phenomenal gift from the legend Matt Fradd. The great Saint Ephraim the Syrian. Matt told me I gotta give it to you. He gifted me my brand new icon. I love it. Isn't it great, Lino Molina? Isn't it great, brother? Isn't it great, my friend? I hope you guys loved it. Sir Minimi, shout out to you, brother, who got gifted a membership. Guy Tacombi, God bless all of you guys for the super chats, your support. You guys are incredible and amazing. Thank you for your phenomenal support. Guys, I want to tell you one more time. Guys, we are here because of your support. And we're able to do debates like this and shows and travel and write and produce material because of your support. If you loved what you saw tonight, consider checking us out on patreon.com, where, yeah, we have a brand new series on Islam coming out very soon. We got a ton of stuff over there. I love all of you guys. Are great. I did my best to stay on topic. I love you so much, Ari. Thank you. Ariam, you're goated, man. You're a goated moderator and a goated member, and all of you all are goated. And because all of you all are goated, we're going to close with a wonderful prayer. I love all you guys. Close with the prayer, guys. All right, guys. I got to go get food, guys. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Did it lag during the show? Hear this from the bottom of my heart. You are an enormous part of our ministry. Your questions were focused and were magnificent. Everyone's were, but you really held his feet to the fire, James. Thank you. Guys, it didn't lag during the debate, did it? I hope it didn't. I love all you guys. You guys are incredible, phenomenal. You guys are the very best. I love all you. See you all tomorrow. We'll have a debate review. We're going to eat. We're going to feast more. And remember, I opened the door just for him. Just for him. I love all you guys. Y'all take care. God bless.
I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father. Through him all things were made, for us men and for our salvation. He came down from heaven, and by the Holy Spirit was incarnate of the Virgin Mary, and became man, crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered death and was buried, and rose again on the third day. In accordance with the Scriptures, he ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory, to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who with the Father and the Son is adored through the prophets. I believe in one holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. I confess one baptism for the forgiveness of sins, and I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. Amen.